Okay, we are now live. Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 5:02. I would like to call the Altoona Libraries District Board of Trustees meeting to order. It is February 28th, regularly scheduled meeting. So I will first start with the roll call. Trustee Andrews.
Here.
Trustee Capel.
Here.
Trustee Clark.
Here.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Here.
Great, thank you for that. Next is the reordering of the agenda. Does anyone have anything on the agenda they'd like to have reordered or omitted? No? Okay, thank you. All right, and at this point, apparently we have no public comment on non-agenda items. Diego will inform us throughout the meeting if we do get any public comments. So with that, I would like to get approval of the consent calendar, which is the approval of the minutes from the January 24th meeting, which start on page 4. May I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
May I get a second?
A second.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. As always, we will do a vote for that. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Clark.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote for me. Okay. Since we have no other no items that have been removed, item 4 is null and void. We will then go to our the meetup of our agenda, item 5, which departmental updates and special presentations. And just keep in mind, looking at the agenda, folks, we've got a very, very packed agenda. So we'll do the best we can to have robust conversations, but be respectful of everyone's time. So with that special presentation for the next chapter of the Altoona Libraries building projects. So this begins on page 8 of your packet. Let me see here. Nikki, are you going to present, or are we going to turn this over to Racklin?
Actually, we're going to have Trustee Capel, who is the chair of the Facilities Committee, introduce this presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Yes, I wanted to, on behalf of the entire committee, as well as our community focus group, just kind of introduce the special presentation. First of all, a huge thank you to our many volunteers who putting in a ton of time and energy into the community focus group to help us through this process and to make sure that we are on the right track. So tonight we're going to get some updates from both our architectural firm ABA as well as the project management firm Racklin Partners. We want to really just make sure that the entire board is completely up to date on where we're at. And really kind of use this as an opportunity to kind of do a gut check, really hear from the rest of the board, get some reactions specifically to where we're at with Bob Lucas and the design ideas there, get some feedback, make sure that we're generally on the right track, make sure there's no kind of red flags or anything that we've missed or folks think that we maybe haven't thought about. I want to just be extremely clear with everybody too that none of what you're going to see is completely set in stone. So there's some new ideas or some changes that need to be made. Like, this is the best time for folks to speak up and be heard. Because if we get too far into the process, things become much more expensive to make changes at that point. So we really want to make sure that the board has gotten all the updates, has had input, in addition to the work that's being done with the community focus group, as well as what you'll hear about tonight more with some of the community outreach plans that we have long before we bring any kind of final ideas to this body to vote on and approve. So that's the idea tonight. The focus will be on Bob Lucas and bringing some of the initial ideas and really, in the spirit of the transparency, making sure that the full board is fully up to date with all of the amazing work that's been happening so far. So Nikki or Katie, anything that you guys want to add to that before I hand it over to ABA, I think?
No, I think you covered it. That's great. And so just to kind of structure what we've got going on and to briefly introduce the folks we have with us, we've got our representatives from the architectural firm. We've got Mark Schumann and Angshapriya Patak, who are here with us from ABA, and then from Racklin, our capital project management group that's assisting us with all the moving pieces of our capital projects. We have Andrew Allman and Jennifer Pearson. So we're going to go through some information and then plenty of time to ask questions or dive into any details that you guys might have questions on.
Yeah, ditto that. Bring all the questions and feedback you've got. So we handing it over to Mark at this point?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Be perfect. Good morning or evening, not morning. Good evening, everybody. It's delightful to be here and to present this work that not only ABA, but Rocklin, as well as library staff and the Facilities Commission and the Community Focus Group, and actually other people have been involved with. Thank you for that primer, Jason. I think that sets the tone correctly. So we're going to go through these plans for you. And we'll pause at certain points for comments and questions as opposed to the very end, so that we have the drawings up hand. Angshu will be sharing her screen to begin with, and then I will take over with the model. So first and foremost, you know why we're here. And Angshu, did you want to talk about the CPR and agenda, or do you want me to go ahead and do that?
You could go ahead and do that. I don't have a specific agenda other than the content in
very
terms of
good.
massing and planning.
Then why don't you go ahead and change the next slide. So really, this is a check-in. You know what? I am looking at the wrong, I have the wrong, I'm going to have to do this without the markups. Excuse me, I apologize. So first and foremost is, ABA, we like to believe that we believe that we should understand what the issues are at hand, what the problem is before we start designing a solution. And so the first and foremost thing that we asked, and it was at the community focus group, was, what are your expectations? What are your experience at the library today? And what do you hope that experience to be? And what we heard were a lot of things, and some of them were about the library specifically, and other things were about the library's place in this community. And what we gleaned from there was that the library holds a very, very strong and prominent place in that part of Altadena, and its history is tied very closely in with the history of Altadena, the history of the library, that is, and Bob Lucas being who he was in the community. So there's a lot of pride, and there's a lot of want for that to continue and even be expanded. And one of the things that kind of came out of that meeting was that, you can go ahead and go to the next slide, that the building in its current size would be difficult to meet not only the expectation, but the need of that community. And so it was brought back to the facilities group, and it was decided pretty easily that we need to expand Bob Lucas. So the first thing that we did is we looked at a number of ideas onto where to expand. And one of the things that we looked at was the area to the north, as well as a different number of options to the east. We do have to remember that we have a certain number of parking spaces required, so that we had to maintain that. We think around 11 or 12, at least that's the number we're going to keep it to. A lot of questions came up about going up, making it 2 stories. Frankly, the size of parking is driving the size, as well as right up front here, there is a 20-foot setback from the street, Lincoln, that we need to maintain. So that started driving a lot of ideas and places. And you can see, we thought, well, a simple thing would be to fill in the porch, but then looking at larger areas of what we can, where we can place things and how they relate to previously discussed ideas and wants, such as the reading garden. We again just looked at these ideas. We presented, go ahead and go to the next slide. We presented a couple of ideas. One was called Always Right, where we just kind of maintain the right angled pieces of the building. And the other one was called Don't Be a Square. The biggest difference between them is Don't Be a Square really does maximize the available space. And some of the issues was to take whatever we do on the north side and tuck it as far against to the east as possible so that we could maximize the amount of outdoor space that was really wanted for a reading garden. In all cases, if you recall, this is the driveway. There's an expansion of the front garden area. Likewise, again, this whole area in back here is just larger. Some of the ideas we had was to make the back door more prominent. And probably another big idea here was that from the street, the addition now addressed the community, that when you're driving either up Lincoln or across Ventura or what have you, you see what's changed, you see what's going on, you see that that things are happening at the Bob Lucas Memorial Branch, and more importantly, you're showing a dedication and a commitment to that community. Any questions before I move in? We're going to talk about the plan next. So I'm at loss. I don't have a screen. Let me do this actually. There we go.
Questions, anyone?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like we have any at this point.
Perfect. I love when I'm that clear. So go ahead and go to the next slide. One of the things that came out of one of the meetings with the groups was looking at Don't Be a Square. And a lot of it was that maximizing the square footage available. And another piece was about setting the addition apart from what's the existing building, very classily and such. So you can see that now we're looking at the space up front becoming, right now it's leaning towards children's, but there would be great visibility both in and out from this corner. So we kind of pictured something at night, you know, when something's going on, people can come by. I don't know if you know this about retail, but got to have big windows, right? So when people walk by or drive by, they see what they want to buy. Well, libraries, turns out, aren't much different. You want when people walk by or drive by to see what's going on in there, and they can think, you know what? I didn't realize that they were open this late. I didn't realize I could bring my kid there and have a story time. I didn't realize there was a literacy center there. And you know what? I think my uncle could really benefit with some ESL or something as such. So this is kind of the idea, is to kind of expose what's been happening, all these wonderful things at Bob Lucas, expose it to the immediate community, if not the community at large. And so that's kind of, keep that in mind when you start looking at the elevations. One of the other pieces we did is we took and we tucked as all of the kind of staff and toilet needs in the one corner, opening up two areas in the immediate library and creating a specific area for a literacy center. This was something to kind of give that specific literacy center a home. Now, not completely, in the fact that this is a pretty wide open area. And so whatever's going on, whether there's more room needed for the literacy center or more room needed for the library, it'll be able to ebb and flow between the two spaces. And all of them, of course, have access to the outdoor reading area. The staff have a desk right here, so they can watch the entrance here, keep an eye on literally every aspect of the library, which is just good practice, especially in a small space with as few staff as you have. Any questions about the plan? And I'm kind of going quickly. I want to keep your time at respect that. So if I'm going too fast, please interrupt me and ask questions. So we're looking at about adding somewhere around 1,100 feet, and which from a functional standpoint is almost a doubling of the square footage there. I think right now the total building is, or the original building was 1,800 feet, but a good 500 square feet of that were toilet rooms and storage rooms and mechanical rooms. So One of the important aspects about Bob Lucas's site is that we're expanding into the outdoors, which is again, almost another doubling of the available square footage for programming, good weather permitting. And the way we've done that, again, the entrance is here, is we've zoned it in a way that this corner here can become a quiet reading area, maybe a little bit more of an adult area where I can sit and enjoy a good book or a conversation with some compatriots. We have a larger area, which would be a material that is not, we're thinking of something like DG, but something maybe a little bit more stable. That is very utilitarian. It's a place that maybe you could have story time and or guest speakers and people can line up here, or it could be story time and the kids can take these kind of movable chairs and such and move them around or sit on the dirt as children will do, or ground, I should say. The other aspect is creating a green kind of belt around it and a patio that comes right off of the entrance. Again, kind of a typical walk any dirt off, walk any grass off before you head inside. There'll be some sort of a fence. It'll be a relatively transparent fence along here. And again, kind of expanding the garden, but keeping books in and people out, so to speak. And then there will be some landscape on the either side of those. So it's still a very intimate garden. We hope to be able to, or we're planning on maintaining the mural. So that's something that becomes this great background to this and a historic aspect to the building, but it becomes a great background to this garden, and whatever we plant in front of that, we'll make sure we keep low and away from it. But we do want to start talking about getting some good sized trees so that we do get some shade further in. And you'll see later in the images that we do have a trellised area over a portion of it to provide the right amount of shade during the summer months, but certainly let a lot of sun in during the winter months. Usually it's not 90 degrees in February, as you know, but here we are. Any questions about the gardens? Oh, and here you can kind of see we're extending the great work that's been started by the environmental group in Altadena, and wanting to not just maintain it, but again, make it larger. And one thing that's not shown here is, you know, right now there's like this 12-foot deep sidewalk in front of the library the entire way from this driveway beyond the bus stop. We're talking with the county about what it would take for us to either get a parkway back in there or extend this green space that way in order to, again, just to get more green in the world. And you just don't have the pedestrian traffic to require a 12-foot sidewalk. Any questions about the reading garden?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And that is which is a beautiful schematic you've got here. It looks like there's 3 or 4 different sort of surfaces at work on the outside patio area. Has there been some thought put into exactly what goes there and how they vary from place to place?
Not yet. We're still in the preliminary design, as Jason talked about. So this is more about defining the spaces using these patterns. We might determine that we do want, I think it's called urbanite, which is broken concrete. We were kind of thinking that this might work as a good surface for here because it's been started out here, so it starts tying those together. Plus, we would possibly use the broken concrete from the demolition portions of the building. So kind of keeping the waste out of landfill and reusing it. The specific area here, I know that, you know, DG is popular. Our landscape architect says if you're going to use DG, you might as well go to concrete because that's what it's going to eventually become. So we're looking and talking about what those products would be. And the green would, in this particular case, we do recommend it would need to be something walkable. You got kids, you've got this flat area. We want to get the area, you know, where it could handle that kind of abuse, for lack of a better word. And one thing we're looking at from a cost standpoint, and we'll have to determine that, it's not looking real good for it, but we are putting it in to see if we can afford it, is to take the asphalt out of the existing parking and put in a permeable surface if we can. Again, these are all just great futuristic ways of looking at how we're dealing with water, how we're dealing with trash, how we're dealing with our built environment.
Mark, I've got a question with the expansion, and I certainly love the idea of the expansion, and I really appreciate the committee's commitment to this, as well as all of the hours that have been put into this by the volunteers in the community. So very much appreciate that. As we look to expand the footprint, obviously that's going to generate greater foot traffic, for the expansion of our programs. We're eliminating parking spaces, so I'm kind of curious as what the impact is on the reduction of parking spaces. I guess what I need to know is how often are those parking lots utilized? To what degree are they full?
So
and by expanding the footprint, reducing the number of parking spaces, and then therefore increase the number of patrons, are we then creating additional parking traffic along, I presume, on Ventura?
So I can't speak to what the traffic load is now or the parking load is now. We are utilizing the county's requirements for parking for the square footage. So if it's under now, we'll be making it, well, right now you'll have more parking spaces than what we'll end up with. So we'll be parked according to the county requirements. If you already have a tight parking situation, this will be not making it any better. There is public parking on Ventura.
Yes.
So my guess would be yes, it may have an effect on it, but I can't speak to what the history of the parking lot has been. The few times that I've been there, I've never had trouble. There's 2 or 3 cars in there. So
yeah, I've not seen it that crowded either. But I thought there was just because we certainly will have residents along Ventura Street that probably want to know this as well. I'm sure they've been maybe Jason, that's part of the group that we're reaching out to as well, as we talk about potentially reduced number of parking spaces, that we'll need to talk to them as well.
I believe the number we're taking out is 3 or 4, so it's not a huge number. But it is when you only have 16, that's a large number. Yeah.
And we have discussed the reduction in parking with the community focus groups and staff at the district too. And so far, at least no one's brought up any kind of concerns.
Andrew, thank you for reminding us of that. In fact, there was an encouragement to see if we could lose more to get more of the green space. So
right. Yeah. Well, there's that elementary school, I think, that's right down the streets. The neighborhoods are used to having the parking, the streets having parking.
I believe there's a relationship
what I'll say,
with the church too.
Sorry,
I was going to say, I believe we have a relationship with the church that's right across the street as well. For if there is overflow, if we are using the larger meeting rooms and we are going to bring in, a larger group, I believe we do have that relationship in play as well. But go ahead, Katie.
No, I was going to say that, the church has been a terrific partner with the district in making some parking available. And quite honestly, like the parking situation at Bob Lucas is so small that when we do have large events there, 3 or 4 parking spaces is not going to make a difference,
Right.
It's just such a small footprint that, there's
I just want to make sure that and I appreciate that, Katie. I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of that. So that could come up, and I just want to make sure that we're doing it. It sounds like you guys are on it. So fantastic.
Good. All right. So Angshu, if I could trouble you to go back a slide. Because one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit more was, no, not that far forward to the plans, if you could.
Okay.
There we go. So, we're ready to show you the elevations and the massing, and we'll go into a live model so we can spin things and go to directions you want. But I really wanted to talk about what this face is to the community and reinforce this idea that what we're putting up front, it really will start becoming not only just literally the front door, but the image of the Bob Lucas Memorial Branch and Literacy Center to the community. And so we wanted something that was broadcasting. We wanted it not we played with a few ideas here and there about what if we just continue the architecture, and what if it's what if we whisper. And one of the things that came out of the community focus group was we really want people to know about this. And one of the maybe one of the issues is that it's currently a residential scale. In fact, it's smaller than most houses these days. That maybe it needs to look not necessarily more institutional, but certainly more lively and less stoic, shall we say. So we started looking at some ideas. And one of the things was to lift the roof this direction so that you're not diminishing the scale of the building towards the street, but increasing it. And that led to an architecture that increased or moved the roof up on that side as well. So they almost become these two speakers saying, hey, we're here, and here's look to see what's going on inside. So now if you want to go ahead and go to slide 6, that would be great. And then we'll cut over to the model. So this is the view from the corner, or you're kind of standing in the middle of the street. You can see you're about ready to get hit by this SUV. But this is the area that's going to be the children's area. And you can see that the large glass here. At night, people will be able to see what's going on in the library. Again, the best form of communication and for people to understand what's happening is visually. It's instantaneous and it can be very, very exciting. Children's areas are wonderful for this, by the way, because they're usually bright, they're usually full of a lot of activity, and children, they just add an energy and life to them. One of the things that we heard also about in regards to not only Bob Lucas, but actually the main library was this idea of a connection between indoor and outdoor and how important that is. We really enjoy it on the main library with those large pieces of glass, but it kind of lacks a little on this library. There's too many layers between it. So one of the things that we did is open this up right up against that garden that's there. And to celebrate that idea of indoor to outdoor, we literally are putting a tree on the building. This tree represents the outside, and it's one of those pieces that we see a lot of in libraries and children's areas, the learning tree, right? This idea of growing from a seed into a mighty oak, or an acorn to a mighty oak and such. And the fact that this happens at the corner seems to work this two-way dialogue, both what's happening inside with the children's area and what's happening with the outside, which is this relationship to the exterior. The Literacy Center, which happens off to the north here, is a little bit more solid, because what happens behind there, sometimes people don't necessarily want to be broadcast that they're at a literacy center, whether it's an ESL issue or they're embarrassed about that. So we raised the window up some, and we'll be using obscure glass and such to let light in and still people to look out, but they're not on this display as much. But some of the stuff that they're doing will be, especially maybe at the end here, where it's a little bit more utilitarian. But one of the other things we noted was that with these roofs kind of diverging, it starts looking like the spine of an open book. And maybe that's how that can be perceived, that all this knowledge and all this stuff that's happening in the library is now opening up to the community. It's opening up everything that happens inside, and now is accessible, not only just visually, but physically and literally. I'm going to move to the model. So while we move to the model, go ahead and I think I can just share. Where to go? Here it is. Can you all see my model?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So as I spin around and move things around, feel free to ask questions, but we'll start right where we were, which was, this is more of a ground view. So you can see maybe from the view we had before, this is, even though it lifts up, it's not giant, right? It's still pretty much a residential scale. Angshu, remind me about how tall this is.
That is about 16 feet to the underside of the roof.
So it's not like going to dwarf the church across the street. It still has that scale, but you can see now, hey, there's stuff going on in here. And now this, we talking about moving the signage out to the front where people can see it and such. One thing that's important also was to keep the existing building intact. Kind of to know where things came from and people came from, and the kind of start talking about the dialogue, the history of not only the place, but of the person. And moving around to the literacy center, you can see, again, it's a little bit higher. So if you're sitting at a table or what have you, I'm not on display. But if I stand up, I can see what's going on outside. And maybe even more importantly, when I'm sitting, I can look up and see the sky, see what's going on with the weather, see what's going on the time of day. Moving around the other side, we were very limited in space with what we could do at the entrance here. So what we thought we would do is something very subtle, and that is just kind of open it up a little. Right now, it's just the width of a door, and put a canopy on it so that someone can wait outside of the weather for someone to pick them up. And then I'm going to zip out here a little. For the reading garden, this is that trellis I talked about that shoots across, and you can see all that's going on inside. So it's nice protected space. This is just exemplary of a fence. It's not necessarily the design we'll be using. We want to use a solid wall here for both visual, to kind of block the visual off, and as much we can do for noise. And we're talking about maybe a small water element, a very simple fountain, both for masking the road noise as well as giving a place for birds to get water and bathe. So in a nutshell, this is your new Bob Lucas Memorial Branch Library.
Mark, I do have preset views if you wanted to give everyone a preview.
Yeah, I think I
Spin
hit all of them.
around.
So if they, yeah, thank you. So any questions or comments? As Jason said, we'd love to hear from you. You know, we presented this to the Facilities Committee and the Community Focus Group. And now we're presenting it to you as the next level of thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up.
Colleagues, any questions? Terry?
Terry is muted, I think.
Terry, muted.
I'm sorry, I was muted there. My question is maybe more technical. I know it looks beautiful to me, and I like all of the ideas thematically as well. On the corner, the part of the building that sort of jets out toward the corner of Ventura and Lincoln has a lot more glass on it, right? It's a floor-to-ceiling kind of thing. Are there technical problems involved with trapping heat with that much glass and having it facing toward the south and the sun?
So there's technical challenges, and that's our next level of design. What I believe will start to happen is that these horizontals will start getting deeper so that they cast a shadow on the glass. We definitely will be using a what they call low E coating, which helps with both with the heat gain as well as ultraviolet lights. The other aspect that if you were to take the total square footage of glazing on the building now, we'd still probably be under what is allowed by Title 24 because the existing building has so little of it. So we're pretty close on that. But yes, it is a challenge, Terry, and we'll be finding ways to mitigate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have no more questions, but this looks fantastic.
I guess I have one more too. I'm sorry, did I butt in there, Rushmore?
No, I just, when people say that, I like hearing.
Yeah, the one that for me is kind of like an optical illusion. I recall there being more of a step up grade from Ventura to the library. And I just wonder if that sort of, because it's all flat there's no like entry stairs the way that I believe there are.
Right.
So how do you do that, or is that just accommodated in the drawing that you have here?
So because we're building a simple model and not getting into the specifics of it, it's about, if I recall, 18 inches, maybe 24 inches higher. So yes, it is. So this will be more than that. We'll be picking that up in landscape so that we won't suddenly have this big exposed chunk of concrete below, but the landscape will slope up to that. which I think it does now. I think it does over into the corner where that concrete question mark is. There's a rain garden currently here. So this is a place where the stormwater goes to. So this will just simply slope back down into that. So it'll work well for that.
Thank you.
And Mark, I just want to point out too, because we didn't specifically talk about it. In addition to meeting, multiple meetings with our community focus group, we also had a meeting with representatives and community members that work with various kind of conservation and environmental groups in the community, just to hear from them and get their feedback specifically on kind of their environmental and landscape piece of it. Because obviously part of this design includes, there is going to be a removal of a tree from that corner. So we wanted to make sure that we respect that. We have some plans to account for that and make sure that whatever the final kind of landscape piece of it, honors the current environment, honors the current landscape, local resources, all that kind of stuff, right? So really just doing, kind of covering all our bases, making sure we're really doing as much outreach as possible and hearing from as many community representatives as possible.
Thank you for that, Jason. Angshu, do you have anything you want to add?
I'm good. I think you've covered it all, Mark. Thank you.
This is great. Any other questions from my colleagues? No, this is great. Thank you very much for your time in presenting this, and of course, all your hard work going into this. And Katie and Jason, thank you very much for bringing this forward, and all your hard work once again. There's a timeline slide. Do you want to go over that, Jason, in our packet?
I can walk everybody through the timeline. I kind of always hate to follow Mark. He's like so eloquent and he's got such exciting things to show. But let me share my screen here quick, and then we can kind of go over stuff that is less exciting, but hopefully you'll find useful. So I believe everybody can see this now.
It's very exciting.
Schedules. That's right.
Yeah, this is my favorite part. Okay, so
favorite part. So this is just sort of a bringing you up to date on where we are with this, right? So this is kind of a high level. Early in the year is when we agreed with ABA to kind of get moving on the architectural, right? And so since early January, we've been focusing on community focus group meetings, staff meetings. We've been working through schematic design. We've had 6 or 7 community focus group meetings kind of already, and a bunch of other meetings. And so this brings us to this point right here, which is today's meeting. Earlier, so the top row here is really the Bob Lucas Memorial Branch. The bottom row is really the main library. And so we're just kind of splitting that off so it's easy to kind of talk about. Mid-February, we also started working really on the schematic design and meeting with the community focus group with a focus on the main library as well. We've been meeting with library staff, both projects, and trying to move them both forward in sort of parallel tracks, but sort of slightly off from each other, one kind of going before the other one. And so the community outreach is still ongoing. And we are planning a big town hall for Bob Lucas specific for March 29th. That will be kind of the big milestone there to sort of get some final feedback, maybe not final feedback, is the right word, but get feedback from the community. And we'll kind of move into continuing to develop the design for Bob Lucas. Kind of in parallel, but just trailing that slightly, will be one in early May for the main library, another town hall, once we have some schematic designs and we presented and develop this up further. And so this is kind of big picture where we are as far as the timeline goes. Anybody have any thoughts on this? Any kind of questions or concerns about where we are on the timeline right now?
Colleagues, any questions? Seems pretty straightforward.
Yep.
I think, Andrew, we do have like a general goal, at least at this point. I mean, I think it's up to be moved as far as when we would, at least for Bob Lucas, be thinking about bringing a recommended at least final design to the full board, right?
Design development is kind of when we're going to want to have sort of the board give us another approval before we move into construction documents. And we are looking at, yes, probably around late May for that. And it's going to kind of continue to evolve as we go into this. As we've expanded the scope of Bob Lucas, it is kind of pushing out our original construction schedule. We kind of wanted to be in construction right around the first of the year. And so we're looking maybe now at the end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter, just because the development of the drawings and the plan is growing along with the site. And so that's kind of where we are with construction too.
Yeah, there's one thing which I wanted to just highlight for everybody is there was a very conscious decision on behalf of everybody that's been involved so far to kind of like slow it down just a little bit, really just to make sure we're giving ourselves enough time to really do the community outreach that's needed and make sure that we've got enough time to really hear from everybody and make sure we're really on the right track with this thing. Because it's one of those kind of like, we've got you do this thing kind of once in a generation, this amount of significant updating and change, and we really got to make sure we do it right. So
makes a lot of sense, Jason. Great. Any other thoughts, comments on this great presentation? No? Well, great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the work so far. It looks fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure to date, and we're looking forward to the rest of the year.
Yeah,
Yes,
good
that's
job.
where we- All right, great.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And returning to our agenda, before we go on to our next item, which is the department update reports, I need to go back and get approval of the actual agenda. As you recall, I asked for any amendments to that, and I glossed right over that because I was anxious to get the meeting going. So I would need a motion, if you would please, to approve the agenda as published.
So moved.
Thank you. I get a second.
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 Okay, I think I heard Camila first. Okay, so we'll go to a vote. Okay, Trustee Andrews,
Aye.
Trustee Capel,
Aye.
Trustee Clark,
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
Thank you, and I vote for me. Okay, now back to our agenda, 5B, which is department update reports, which starts on page 16 of your package. Any questions, comments? Staff is here to answer anything that you may have. Yes, Terry.
I have a question about the little free library, which I believe is mentioned in here. And the reason I have the question is because I have one in my front yard, and I'm not quite sure how that gets, if I should be doing something about picking up books from the library and adding them, or if they're added in there for me. I've never seen anybody approaching it other than the people that are reading stuff out of it. So sorry for the silly question, but I thought this is a good time to ask it.
Okay, good question, Trustee Andrews. We make shipments using the Curiosity Connection by taking some donations from the friends and filling them. I believe our staff person, Helen Milner, has a list of all of the various little free libraries, and I think each week they hit different ones. So I could confirm that your little free library is on that list, but they're doing it without having to like contact the people and just fill them.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments, questions on the reports? Yes, Katie.
Well, first, just always a big thank you to all of the departments for preparing comprehensive reports, but I just wanted to make sure that we took a moment to express our appreciation as a district to Michelle Hoskins, who has been with the Altadena Libraries for 42 years, which will be retiring at the end of February, which is basically now. But anybody who knows Michelle knows what a tremendous asset she is and how important she's been to our district. So I just wanted to, on behalf of all of us, make sure we took a moment to applaud Michelle and appreciate her. And certainly she will be missed, and we're so grateful for all her many, many years of service.
Said Katie. Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And, Katie, stated as always, we always are so appreciative of the comprehensive reports. So, okay, moving on. So we've got the support groups. Altadena Library Foundation. Bridget?
Hi.
Good evening.
I'm going to make this quick if I can. Well, and I can. because we didn't meet, it's really just been a time of organizing the committees in a little bit more responsible way so that we all understand how we use our foundation manager. And as of Saturday morning, I think, or Friday night, maybe, Ann Donahue and Chloe Cavalier completed our grant proposal. So we have submitted another proposal to Tournament of Roses Tournament of Roses Foundation for $10,000 to help with several updates that the library wants to do for Curiosity Connection, including Polaroid cameras, printer, handouts, books, free comics for kids during comic week or something. So we've submitted that and we're excited to do that. Our leadership team met, really exciting meeting, and I think is leading to some much stronger collaboration among friends and the foundation. And I think that is very, very positive movement on both our parts. We're also, as I said, going to be creating a video that we can use at backyard gatherings, coffee shops, wherever people want to meet, to begin to really talk to the community about the endowment that we've established with the Pasadena Community Foundation that will ensure the needs of the library in perpetuity. And that's something we're really wanting to begin now to introduce to the community. So any of you want to host something in your backyard, let us know. We're open to that. And then I just want to close by saying what a privilege it's been to be serving on the community focus group. I wish all of you as trustees could feel the energy when we all meet. You may think that we're all getting together and we're all just agreeing to get along, going along to get along, but it has been a very open, honest, and transparent conversation about, well, I don't like that. That's really dumb. That looks really good. And how the architectural firm that you as trustees chose has responded to feedback is simply amazing. And you should pat yourselves on the back for thinking and choosing wisely. So that's it. Thank you.
Very kind of you, Bridget. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Bridget?
Bridget should have introduced the special presentation instead of me.
You did just fine.
Yeah, great. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, great. Thank you, Bridget. Always appreciate your time. Okay, Sally, Friends of the LC Library.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Sally.
This is going to be a short one. It'll be a longer one next month, so I'll warn you now. This month, the Friends have organised our membership drive, and that is taking up all our energies. And the talks go on to find a better solution to receive donations of books for the public. And I really want to publicly thank Jonathan for all his help on rescuing our existing structure after rains and winds and finding solutions for us. And he's found another solution for us again. So thank you so much, Jonathan. And that's all I've got for you this month. A lot more next month. Thanks.
I just have a quick comment about that.
Yep.
And that is in terms of a solution for donating the books. I was over there just the other day, and I'll be back with several bags of books that I have from our house that we're culling things over here. And I noticed now that there's that tent structure in that, right? With the tables and so on.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and so
that's right.
That was a very convenient thing. I mean, I remember the days where people would drop them off in boxes along the walkway there, but that tent in the back was very nice to put the books on.
Yeah.
just a comment.
It's not a bad solution. Thank you very much for that. Really, as I say, due to Jonathan, that it keeps its integrity, because it has blown away, it has washed away in the winds and rain. Jonathan keeps, finding a way to make it stand up, and he's got even better new plans for it. So, that's all due to Jonathan. Thanks, Terry.
Jonathan does great work. Any other comments or questions of Sally? No, seeing none. Sally, thank you very much for your time once again. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to your next presentation. Okay, now we go to the director's report, starting on page 26. Nikki?
All right, thank you. Good evening, trustees and members of the community, hopefully watching us online, and staff. I also, to echo Katie's comments from earlier, want to wish Michelle Hoskins farewell after 42 years of dedicated service to the library district. She actually came in today to sign off on her final paperwork. So Rushmore actually got to see her, which was kind of nice as he was here signing. So I just wish her the best on this next adventure. For those of you that don't know Michelle, she has more energy than I do, and I cannot believe that she's worked here for 42 years. She must have started in diapers, basically, because she's one of the most energetic and fun people that works for the system. So we're definitely going to miss her. I did want to thank Diana Wong, our branch manager, and the other staff that helped her organize a really great retirement party for her this past Friday night. We had present and past employees, several of which I'd never met before, show up to honor her and wish her well. So thank you to Diana for putting that together, and we're going to miss Michelle. We also got the bittersweet news that our wonderful administrative assistant, Diego Gamboa, is leaving us. His last day is actually going to be this Friday. I'm very excited for him in, having his master's in public health. I think this position as a Latinx Health Equity Program Coordinator for the City of Long Beach's Health and Human Services Department is a perfect match for him. Wish him well. I do want to publicly thank him for a very busy, very productive, and very accomplished year of working with me. Oftentimes he's been my sanity with all of the transition and things that we've been going through. So he will be very missed, but I definitely wish him well. So I am excited to announce that we have hired an office manager, a very accomplished woman who I think is going to be able to check off all of the boxes in terms of accounting and bookkeeping and background and payroll and the things that we really need to carry that position forward. Background check's not completed yet, but they're actually slated to start next Monday. So really excited, and hopefully we'll be able to introduce them at the next board meeting. So that does mean we now have 2 vacancies. So we do have the library assistant position vacated with Michelle Hoskins' retirement. So that we have posted and are hoping to look at interviewing sometime in like early to mid-March, as well as the administrative assistant position. We've put that out on CSDA and government jobs. So we've already been getting some really good hits on both positions. So looking good so far. Fingers crossed we'll be able to fill those sooner than later, because as you know, Diego does a lot for me. All right, what else did I want to highlight? I didn't want to talk too long because we have a very long meeting tonight. I am excited to talk about the bond issuance. I know that really didn't come through in some of the other reports this month. So as you know, the board voted on December 20th to issue the amount of $21.125 million. Next step with the bond issuance team was to pitch to Standard & Poor's, basically present to them so that we could get a credit rating. Once we had the credit rating, we could finalize the preliminary official statement or documents that we needed to be able to carry the bond sale forward. The bond sale took place on February 17th, which was a Thursday morning, from 8 to 10 a.m. Literally sold all the bonds in 2 hours. It's crazy how fast that whole thing came down. So the closing on the bond sale is taking place this Thursday, and my understanding is we will have the $22.9 million in proceeds in our bank account later this week. So that's really exciting news. And I do want to thank the bond issuance team that we put together. Doug Anderson was wonderful to work with as our municipal advisor. Mike Kavanaugh and his team were excellent in terms of preparing us to present to Standard & Poor's. That's not something I ever thought I would be doing as a librarian, but we were definitely well prepared, and the meeting went extremely well, and we got the AA- rating. So that was excellent. Best and Krieger is serving as our bond and disclosure counsel. We had Nora O'Brien, who I know we were all sad to see go, but Mrinal Shah, who took her place, has been excellent to work with it as well. As well as NBS, we worked with Sarah Mayers and Nick Dayhoff, who did all of the special tax assessment. I just can't emphasize enough how important this team was, and really congratulate the CFD committee as well as the board for hiring such a solid team. Like, it was excellent to work with them, and I feel like the whole process went really smoothly as a result. So I will stop there. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I know we have a lot to cover in the meeting tonight.
Colleagues, questions, comments?
I'll just real quickly, just to Nikki's point, thank the CFD committee, both the trustees, the staff, and the community volunteers. Like, I feel like the facilities committee, like, we get to show up with like these fancy plans and all this exciting stuff and get all this recognition. None of it would be possible without the work of the CFD committee, right? And so again, to Trustee Andrews and everybody else involved in that, like, amazing work, guys. Like, thank you so much.
Yeah. Great. Anyone else? No? Okay. Well, I also want to echo Nikki's comments about Diego. I had the opportunity to see him today as well, and he is a shining star, and his presence was felt immediately, and he did a tremendous job. And not just because he's leaving, it was sad for us, but he left an indelible mark. He's left a lot of the structure in place for the next person to be successful. And we're thankful for the time we did have with him. And there was no doubt that he was going to go on to bigger and better things. And we're just happy that we had him for the period of time. So Diego, we wish you well. Great. Okay. Any other thoughts?
For those kind words.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. Well deserved. Great. Okay. So let's continue on our agenda here. And we've got the standing committee reports. We've got the budget committee. Trustee Clark.
You want me to do financials?
Did I bless her? I beg your pardon. Yeah, sorry about that. Financial report starting on page 32. Thank you.
Of course. I was like, oh, I don't have to. No, just kidding. So this month we're reviewing the December 2021 financial statement, which is also very related to the mid-year budget adjustments we'll be looking at a little bit later. This actually is the best month of the year, in my opinion, when it comes to the budget, because we got our money from the county. So we're at 97% of our revenues for the year versus in the past when we've been in the negative. So general revenue expense, year-to-date expenses are 2.28 million, with our revenues now over 4 million, which are resulting in a net revenue balance of $1,812,194. Right now, our total cash and investments are $3,222,451. As you're aware, we only need the $1,941,000 to satisfy the 50% that we need in our annual reserves. So district assets, love to see this number, are now $7,443,516. So again, this is our big year, or our big month in terms of revenue. In terms of general fund expenses to point out, we did have to pay LA County tax collection fees in December. So that was line 29 of $37,591. We also spent $14,076 due to a combination of monthly cleaning services as well as one-time landscaping services for the main library. Audit and financial consulting were over $8,000 in December, largely due to their assistance with us reconciling and reporting out, since we do not have an office manager at the time. Let's see. And we spent on electronic databases and subscriptions, line 55, $14,583 as well. So in terms of capital fund expenditures, we spent a combined $27,259 related to the building projects. Those are broken down more specifically in the report. And that's about it. So it's all positive for December, which is nice.
Great. Thank you for that, Nikki. Any questions for Nikki? No?
No,
Okay.
no questions for you guys, but just a comment, and that is I like the way that you've sort of started to sequester now the revenue expenses for the capital fund, because I think it's going to be real important for us to be able to account for things quickly and easily to anybody that has any questions, especially members of the public, and to have those logged differently, in the way that you are doing it. I really appreciate that. So thanks very much.
Yes, and I think that list of expenditures is just going to grow. So it's really clear how the money is being spent.
I agree, definitely. Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments, we'll go on now to the Standing Committee reports, Budget Committee. Katie?
Just super briefly, Trustee Wilkerson and I met as the Budget Committee. We went through line by line with both Director Winslow and Ian Berg from Ide Bailey, resulting in the mid-year budget adjustment that you see, and we will get to that as an action item a little bit later, but we had a great meeting. We'll be able to talk about all the specifics later on.
Yep, definitely. Great. Thank you for that. All right. Next, the CFD Committee. Terry?
Okay, you'll see my report on page 41 of the packet, and Nikki's already gone through a lot of this because we had our meeting on the 9th of February. So a lot of this is old news, especially vis-a-vis how the bonds were sold and all of the other things. I wanted to thank Jason for his nice words about the committee, and I do feel that we've kind of pulled together a pretty tight ship. And a shout out again to our community volunteers for that: Kim Kenny, Amy Lyford, and Jim Vitale, who done a great job at being the voice of the community. And so I think things have gone well. One thing that I think I'd like to have the board consider is that we've done sort of the lion's share of what we had to do now. We've established all of these vendors and we've got things going. We're getting into our second year now, volunteers for the committee from the outside. And I would suggest, I'll talk more about this when the time comes, that we might want to slow down the pace of our meetings now, start meeting every other month or every quarter. I don't think that we need to meet every month pretty much the way that we have been doing. So I welcome any comments about that, but I think that might be a good way to steer the committee, steer the activities, but there's not going to be that much to report on, I believe, going forward. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Any comments about slowing that one down?
Well, Terry, as your partner in crime in that committee, and working with our community members, I think you're spot on. I mean, at this point, there's no reason to meet if there's really nothing substantive to discuss. We can always call, an ad hoc meeting, emergency meeting if necessary, but I think spacing out the meetings is appropriate this time.
Okay, great. We'll adjust accordingly then.
Great. Any other questions or comments for Terry and the CFD committee? No? Okay, thank you very much for that. All right, now we'll go to the ad hoc committee reports, facilities committee. Terry, sorry, Jason, you want to introduce this report or just turn it right over to Racklin?
No, I'll just highlight a couple of things. Again, thank you to our team at Racklin for putting this together each week. I think the bulk of what we wanted to review with the full board, we handled in the special presentation. I'll just point out a couple of things. One, there's going to be a heavy focus over the next month around community outreach. So we'll be doing, email blasts. There's a new landing page and website. We'll be putting stuff on social media. So, reaching out to our various community partners, including, the Altadena Town Council, to just really make sure we're getting the word out there on the town halls and the other efforts, the survey, that kind of stuff. So folks, should just keep an eye out for that. Katie or Nikki, anything else you guys wanted to point out that wasn't covered in the special?
Yeah,
briefing?
I'll just flag two things I think that came up in the month prior kind of decision, like developments basically. One is around the seismic repair issues. So we had done a whole bunch of investigation as to, kind of what seismic upgrades were necessary, what was, the difference between a risk category 2, risk category 4. Basically, the library currently is a risk category 2 building. Things like hospitals are risk category 4. Nikki did a lot of work reaching out to various partners and emergency services. And basically it was determined that risk category 2 really is what makes the most sense for the library going forward. There's no indication that, pushing that risk category up represents a particular service to the community, since the ways in which the library would be used, risk category 2 seismic requirements would be more than sufficient. So it's good from a cost standpoint, because obviously we had factored in those upgrades. Going further to the risk category 4 level would represent a substantial cost, and the committee didn't feel like that was really merited. So I think that's an important decision point that we just wanted to flag for you guys. And then the other bit, and we'll talk more about this when we get to the CEQA RFQ, is just making sure that as we're going forward, especially given the expansion of scope at Bob Lucas, that all the modifications to the structures are in line with the requirements put in place by CEQA. And so making sure we have a consultant to look at each of those in conjunction with, of course, our Racklin team and the other folks involved, like our historical and our landscape consultants. So just two kind of major developments. I think everything else is an ongoing process, but wanted to flag both of those for you guys.
Great.
Thank you, Katie.
Any questions, colleagues? No? Okay. Well, thank you for that update. And now next we'll go to the redistricting committee, starting on page 45, the Racklin report. Camila, did you want to introduce this?
Actually, this is a Camila report.
It says prepared by, but actually,
I
great.
know. I think it was a tiny typo. There's another typo I made. I know the meeting that we had, myself, Katie, and Nikki, was on the 3rd of February and not the 5th. So just those two areas of correction. Our meeting was focused on the barriers that we were facing with our original timeline and plan, which you can see in the report. And basically, we were having some challenges contacting and reaching Douglas of the NDC. And so we were able to reach him. Thank you very much, Katie, for your efforts. And plan a meeting for May the 6th. But in the meantime, as you can see, the timeline that we had outlined is no longer attainable. So the committee discussed how to move forward. And at this time, we are suggesting that we begin the process. We'll meet with Doug in May on the 6th and discuss with him, like basically refocus and re-strategize on how to move forward and plan out a new set of dates. But for now, we will continue as we have, with the next election in 22 being an at-large election. And then planning for the redistricting to start, or the process to start later this fall. We have surmised that although there are some, the risk factors that we originally talked about, that it will be not likely, that we will run into those financial liability that we discussed, and that it will be, in a nutshell, okay to pause and refocus our redistricting efforts. Any thoughts, Katie, that you wanted to add, or Nikki?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly.
I agree.
Great.
Just a
Any
comment.
questions? Terry?
I guess a comment from me. So when you say, we're talking about 2024 is the point in which this will all be implemented and will be district. And when I read this, I thought that was really a wise move, because by then most of the work on the library will be done. It'll be sort of a shining diamond, I think, in Altadena. And I think people will have more interest just being part of it, because I agree with everybody, finding candidates for these seats can sometimes be really challenging. We had that one year where there was controversy and everybody was clawing to get in, but relatively quiet it got right away after that. So having something that really grabs the community the way that this will, I think, is really going to increase the number of candidates that we might get. So good work. I like the idea of that going to 2024.
Yep,
Yeah.
thank you. That was, go ahead, Katie.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and I'll just remind the board that that was also always the plan. So the idea was always to keep the 2022 elections the way they are, to shift to the by-district elections in 24. Doing the process in quarters 1 and 2 of 22, where we are right now, would have given us just a longer runway to undertake some of that candidate recruitment work towards that cycle in 24. But our feeling was that even doing it in 2023 would still give us enough time to put in the hours and spread the word, recruit candidates. Because as you say, I think we're going to have a lot better opportunity to get people excited about running for some of those district seats.
I agree. It makes a lot of sense. And, we're going to talk about this at the conclusion under the governance item about what we discussed at our retreat and coming up with a way to promote the volunteerism of being a board of trustee member and what it means to us and what it can mean to residents to participate. So that'll kind of go hand in hand with that as we move forward, trying to get more people interested in what we do. So great. Thank you very much for that, Camila. So with that, then we will then go to liaison reports. We've got, starting on page 47, we've got the government liaison report by Terry.
Yeah, and as usual, it's an entirely different subject. It's another slice of government to discuss, but it's an interesting one to me. And that is that February 18th was the deadline for legislators to get their ideas for bills in. And so there was a flurry of activity of people turning in their bills to get ready for a vote or what's going. The way that the CSDA did it in terms of listing these things was that it talked about, it talked about categories of special districts. So it would have, parks, special districts, and all the other types, but it only had one library special district issue that was, or law, I should say, that was proposed. And that was the first one that's listed as Senate Bill 34 from Umberg. I'm not sure who that is, but it had to do with library success cards. And apparently there was this bill to, and it's still in the works, to get libraries money, grant money, to have relationships with local schools on academic or student success cards. And it's in the pipeline now. It goes to committee and so on, but they had a really tough time getting to that point. And I guess the reason I want to talk about this a little bit is that I talked to the people at CSDA, some of whom are former lobbyists and so on for the state. So they've got a pretty good understanding of how the legislature and the Senate works in California. But they said even this bill, when it was originally introduced, SB 34, it was a bill about polling places. So it was a voting bill. But apparently when that number is taken, you can change that into whatever you want it to be. And they changed it into this library student success card thing. So it's not so much that this one could be coming, this library student success cards. In fact, I'm not sure it will, because it looks like it has an uphill battle. But it was just an interesting idea about, or interesting, look at the way that the state government works. I did put our two representatives, Chris Holden and Anthony Portantino, I put their bills in here for people to look at, and they seem pretty solid to me. You can read about them on your own. You don't need me to take you through it. But I was impressed with some of the things that they're trying to get through. The solitary confinement bill by Chris Holden was an interesting one for me, and also the idea that kids cannot be held, they cannot be sort of prosecuted, or evidence can't be taken on statements that they make under custody if they've been under coercion and so on. So these are things that I think that they should be proud of. They did a pretty good job with their breadth and width of the things they were bringing to the table. And then the one that stuck out to me on Anthony Portantino was the bill to improve pedestrian and cyclist safety, which I know has been a big topic up here in Altadena. So that's his bill. You see that down on the second page. So just another look at our state government and the way it works, and these interesting bills that have been put forth. Any questions?
Colleagues? Well, Terry, as always, we appreciate your thoroughness, and it's always interesting to read all the different bills that are working their way through legislation. So it's some of it are very specific to libraries, but all of these in some way impact our community. So it's important to have these kind of conversations. So appreciate your efforts here.
Thanks.
Great. Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments from our colleagues here, we'll then go on to, well, we've already heard from Sally and Bridget, but Katie, do you have anything further to add on the foundation? No?
Nope.
Okay. Camila, on
Nor
Friends?
do I.
No? Okay, wonderful. Great. Thank you very much. Seeing there's any other trustee reports? No, seeing none. Okay, and then we have no unfinished business. So then we will go into the new business. Agenda 8A, which is a review and approval of the Altadena Library District's unfunded accrued liability policy. So I hope all of you had the opportunity to watch the YouTube video of the budget presentation. And I really want to thank Camila and Katie for your in-depth questions. I thought you asked a lot of key important questions, and I thought you teased out a lot of the big concerns that we've been discussing. So I'm looking forward to having a discussion with Andrew with Cal Muni Advisors. I'm going to turn it over, I believe, to Nikki, though, to go over the policy. Of course.
Yeah, good evening. So as Trustee Cervantes mentioned, thank you to everyone for watching the video ahead of the meeting. We thought it wouldn't be a good use of everyone's time to have a full presentation again, when I do think Katie and Camila asked some really good questions that were probably similar to what would be asked tonight. We did provide the presentation in the board package that was given to the Budget Committee for your review. And we asked Andrew Flynn with Cal Muni to be here tonight if you have any additional questions. But again, this is a issue for many government agencies, is this unfunded accrued liability. And we definitely think it'd be a good idea to work with Cal Muni to put together a policy on how we're going to work on paying that liability down. I'll turn it over to Andrew if you want to add anything, and then if the board members have any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I'm glad you all got to watch the video. Obviously, this is a complex topic. I do appreciate that it's not as exciting as an extension to a library, which looked pretty fantastic, by the way. Congratulations on that. I'm happy to answer questions. I think the main thing I would leave you with is just to be thinking about these unfunded accrued liabilities really as a rolling liability that the district will carry. Right? These are CalPERS, as you have employees who are working, they're accruing a fixed benefit out into the future. And so as CalPERS is working over the years to try to determine what that's going to be at a future date. And so this is always an evolving process. And so really the goal of a policy isn't to make your UAL go away. It's to minimize it long-term so that it reduces the cost to the district over time. That's really, I think, the key thing I would want to leave you with, but I'm happy to answer questions. It is a complex topic, but I totally appreciate that there might be plenty of questions out there.
Colleagues, questions, comments? I think just maybe, do you have the ability, Nikki, just to pull up one slide? I think it'd be helpful for those people, maybe if anyone's watching this for the first time, didn't watch the budget committee, if you could pull up page 6 of the presentation.
Sure.
I'm not sure which page that would be. This is, the title is pension payments. I think that
It's the scariest graph.
Yeah, well, I just want to give people the perspective of, you know, what we're looking at, and the reason why we are commissioning this. We want to have this contract in place, so we do have a plan, because it's really important for people to understand. It's not just you know, the library and you know the books, but we've got these unfunded mandates that, you know, every public entity has to deal with, and so it's important to get the plan in place now.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out as well that Diego, I don't have it right in front of me right now, but where if people are interested in watching the presentation, it's from the budget committee meeting that took place on February the 3rd, I believe. And it starts at almost right at the beginning of the meeting. Is that right, Diego?
That's right. It starts at minute, I think 4 and 20 seconds and ends around 40 minutes after that.
Yeah. So if there's members of the public that are curious, it's a really robust and thorough presentation about this process.
And if I may, I'll just add that the goal here is just to get this process started, right? So the recommendation that the budget committee is making to the board is that you approve the process of engaging with community, so that we can start to develop a policy, and what exactly that will look like, what fiscal impact that will have on our budget, you know, quarter over quarter, year over year, definitely to be determined. But certainly having a plan in place to manage this is, I think, in line with a lot of other decisions we've made, taking kind of the long view and making sure that we can continue to discharge our obligations, not just now, but, you know, decades down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I may, and I believe that slide 6 really is the perfect, you know, visualization of the challenge. And again, the district is doing everything it's supposed to do. You guys are making your payments to CalPERS, right? You're making your contributions. But as you can see in that slide, you know, the unfunded liability payments, just by the very nature of the way CalPERS, you know, tracks these liabilities, these payments are growing, and it becomes a bigger and bigger budget challenge for any type of agency that is seeing these increasing responsibilities to pay unfunded liability components, because that starts to eat into your other operating budgetary items. And so the goal is to really to manage those unfunded liabilities so that those payments are lower over time. While you're still fulfilling those obligations, you're also freeing up your budget to do other things. And again, that's really where we come in from. I mean, there are actions that you can take, right? Some of them are incremental steps, some of them are bigger moves. But the first step is always, you develop a policy, because unfunded liabilities didn't get created overnight. They're not going to go away overnight. So how do you have a strategy that's going to outlive current staff and current board, and recognize that, you know, this is going to be an ongoing process? So you want to establish a framework that's going to you make sure that you have that diligent process each year that says, what steps do we take this year to make sure that we are minimizing these long-term costs while fulfilling our obligations to our employees?
Great. Okay. Any other thoughts, comments from our colleagues?
I just had a quick comment, question. I watched that meeting actually, and I got the presentation. It almost is a presentation you have to see twice to really get. But one thing I remember you saying is, even though that graph on page 6, as Katie says, looks pretty scary, it also is not atypical. There's a lot of agencies like ours that are in exactly the same situation. So what you propose as we work through the agreement and all the other things here really is also a way for us to pay that down efficiently, right? To close that gap with a payment strategy that we have. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and like I said, some of the moves will be incremental. It'll be budgetary every year. It'll be things that you go through from a budgetary process of saying, how do we make, you know, incremental payments to pay this down? Think of UAL like a whole set of mortgages. And if you think about it that way, these are all, the more you can pay principal payments early, the less interest cost you're going to have, right? So you don't always say, well, we're going to pay off, I'm not going to pay off my mortgage, right? I'm going to pay $100 more this month. Those incremental moves, are manageable, but make a long-term difference and keep the district sustainable over time. Now, that said, there are big moves that can be made, but we want to make sure that we have a policy in place first that says, what is our overarching strategy? Make sure we are looking at the most affordable strategies first before you look at the bigger moves. As I heard earlier, you just completed a bond issue. Congratulations on the pricing it when you did. The market has gotten a little hectic in the last few days. So your timing was fantastic on that. Again, Cal Muni, we do that type of work. So we're very familiar with the work you just went through on that. That type of financing structure is possible here, but that's an expensive step compared to the incremental steps that you can take of just taking, making small payments incrementally each year. Sometimes that's the right move, but sometimes it's not. So you want to make sure that you've got that policy in place that's going to kind of guide that logic as you move forward, rather than trying to pull the trigger on a big move when that might not be the right strategy, at the time.
Thank you for that. Any other thoughts, comments? Great.
One more.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
And that is when you look at slide number, on the slide on page 9 that shows sort of a mountain of interest, piling up and then coming back down again. I was having trouble with that slide. Is that one where a sort of amortization schedule is now, or what happens with your assistance as we go forward?
That's where your unfunded liability amortization is now. So that's what you see if you pull up the reports from CalPERS today. I will tell you that given CalPERS performance last year, where they earned 21.3%, this number, this will start to look better without me doing anything. Right, there's going to be benefits, so these numbers will drop compared to this most recent report. But again, you have, as I said in here, there's think of this as a whole bunch of little mortgages that have stacked up over time. That's why it's structured this way, is you have this kind of a layering effect. So each year it can go up and down. So what our goal is to, again, not make it completely go away, but to A, level it out, and B, reduce, shorten the amortization periods so that your payments over time are more principal, less interest.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? Well, Andrew, appreciate your being here this evening. I thought your presentation was very thorough. So what we have before us, colleagues, is matter to authorize our district director to contract with Cal Muni to develop this unfunded accrued liability policy at a cost of $5,700. So may I get a motion to approve and authorize our director to do so?
So moved.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Great. Thank you, Jason. All right. We'll go to the votes. So, all right. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Clark.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And I vote for me. Thank you very much. That item is approved. Once again, thank you, Andrew. We look forward to seeing the report back and charting a path for us for certainly stability going forward.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. Okay, next on our agenda is how are we doing here on time? 6:30. Everyone doing okay? Keep moving forward. Need a break? We're good? Okay, we'll keep moving then. All right. Item 8B, review and approval of the Altadena Library District's fiscal year 21-22 mid-year budget adjustments. Starts on page 84.
Yeah, only up to 84,
Yeah.
All right, so good evening. We took the budget adjustments to the budget committee at their meeting on February the 3rd. There have been some minor tweaks, but overall they are making the recommendation that we approved this budget as adjusted. Some of the larger amendments to the budget that I'll point out are we did, based on what we've already received in property tax, increase revenues by 40,000, which were kind of offset by having to reduce the revenues because of passport services not being at capacity and being able to do passport photos like in the past. But overall, we're proposing an increase of almost 29,000 this year based on what we've already received. So that was excellent news. Some of the larger things to point out in terms of expenses, as you can see, that was salary and salaried and hourly staff. We moved several employees into exempt status, actually through an approval by the board. So we had to move money from salaried into hourly just to compensate for that. Overall, though, if you look at total expenses in terms of salaries and benefits, we're actually underspending what was predicted by almost 50,000. So that's due to vacancies that we've had and other things that we've had to spend on instead, especially under professional services, which I'll touch on. There was an increase in line, 31 of 45,500. That was due to us hiring a cleaning company back in September. So that wasn't originally budgeted. And that increase is to cover that expense. We were able to reduce both structures and improvements and equipment, furniture and fixture lines, because we are absolutely trying not to spend anything on the buildings as much as possible right now with us going into renovations. The accountants did ask us to have the 25,000 for the one and 15,000 for the other, just in case, but thankfully we haven't really had to tap into that much. So we did adjust that out. And then going down to professional services, we had to increase audit and financial consulting. We thought we would have an office manager in place long ago. And since we didn't, we've had to spend more with our accounting firm. But I know Jason will be happy about this. We were able to reduce legal fees by 25,000. So those continue to decrease, which is wonderful year over year. And then under consultants other, that 32,000 is covering the 26,000 that we contracted with North Star Consulting, as well as the 5,700 that you just approved for us to spend on the UAL policy. And then a very minor, I think it was $250 on a consultant that worked on the land acknowledgement resolution that you're going to be voting on as well. So overall, we are actually able to increase transferring out to the reserves. And what we're anticipating is 19,750 additional. So putting us at 28,600 going into reserves. The biggest adjustments to the budget were actually in the donations and grants funds. As you can see in line 6 of that fund, we have increased the proposed revenue by $275,800. The two were the $250,000 that Assembly Member Holden was able to secure for us through the state budget process. We're currently working, that's funneling through the California State Library. So most of that, as you can see under expenses, the plan is to use that money to what we're calling expand the district's footprint within the community. That's going to include the purchase of another mobile library unit. This one more focused probably on homebound services, senior services, as well as needs that we're going to have around like storage and moving things as we're getting closer to closing the libraries. In addition to purchasing, what we're hoping is 2 library materials vending machines. That's early on. I'm going to be going to the Public Library Association conference and doing research on the best ones that we could purchase to put in the community. So again, when the library is closed, our 2 different locations, there'll be other ways for people to connect with resources throughout the community. So those were like the biggest adjustments to the budget. We haven't received the 250,000 yet, but I did sign off on the application that we had to file with the state library, and it has been approved. So it usually takes, I think they said 5 to 6 weeks to cut a check. So yay, wonderful to get more donation and grant money. And then as far as the capital expenditure fund, the only difference there is that we increased it by 36,000 to cover actual expenses that we'll be paying for ahead of getting the bond issuance proceeds. So that's kind of a higher level. Katie or Camila or Ian is here as well if you have anything to add or any questions. Hopefully we can answer them, but it's looking good.
Colleagues, questions? No?
I just had a quick question about, and I think you covered it online. If you look at page 85 of your report, and you've got structures and improvements, and that we're not using that much. Are you going to keep it as a placeholder in the one budget and also put a new line like that in the capital budget, going forward?
Yeah, I believe it will depend on what we're spending it on, but I do think it would have to stay in the general fund, depending, especially as we know that we're planning to close the buildings at separate times. So if there's any like structures or improvements that we're doing not related or coming out of the capital fund, then we would need to account for that on that line. Isn't that correct, Ian?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. We can start sort of keeping a general overall capital fund, and more specifically within that fund, we can sort of have like a CFD capital, keeping that money separate and anything related to that project. So if we did want to sort of move those out to the bigger, larger general capital fund, then that would be possible. It's really just a matter of presentation, but we will be keeping that CFD money and that project related costs tracked independently.
Okay, and I guess a bigger question actually is, are there definitions about what we can spend that CFD money on? I mean, if you look at, I know Jonathan had done some, electrical receptacle replacements around the trees in the front and things like that, things that would be done normally to the library. Is there, as far as anybody knows, is there some kind of rule about how we have to account for things, those structural improvements in different categories? Or?
Yeah, there definitely is very clear language, and a lot of the bond issuance documents that are being reviewed and signed off on right now. I was planning to bring those to the CFD committee at their meeting on March 9th. So you guys can review. Trust me, we have hundreds of pages of documents, but I'll bring the things that are more clearly outlining. Yes, because it's very clear what we can and cannot spend the capital improvement funds on. Okay,
I didn't realize that mountain of documents. Maybe my comment about slowing down the CFD committee, we need to keep it going a little bit. So, all right, and I think that's on March the 9th, right? That meeting?
Yeah, next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Nikki, just a quick question on the workers' comp line item. We're at 100%. We're a little over 100% mid-year, and it looks like that was the adjustment was increased due to billing occurred from the prior year payroll reconciliation. So, how are we as far as for the remainder of the fiscal year as far as workers' comp?
I can answer that, Nikki.
Sure.
We are spent out. What happens is that we provide an estimate of payroll costs ahead of the year, and SDRMA will bill us up front, and they'll do a reconciliation catch up. So we really can't catch the actual until they true up. And I think it occurred in September or October of this year. So it's usually about 4 months after the fiscal year. So that was that extra 2,000 there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, got it. But if someone files a workers' comp claim tomorrow, then we'd probably be looking at an adjustment down the line, because we are pretty much paid up to what we budgeted at this point with this adjustment. But if another employee were to go workers' comp, then we'd have an adjustment year end then probably.
Yeah, it would potentially increase our premium if we're tapping into or people are filing workers' comp. Luckily, knock on wood, we haven't had one claim since I've been here, at least. So thankfully that amount has dropped year after year since I've been here. Hopefully that'll stay the case.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that. Great. Any other thoughts, comments? Okay. And Nikki, do you need approval for this mid-year?
I do.
Okay, great. May I get a motion to approve the 21-22 mid-year budget adjustments as presented?
I move that we approve the
Thank you, Terry. May I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jason. All right, we'll go to the vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capell.
Aye.
Trustee Clark.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
Thank you. And I vote for me. The item's approved. Thank you very much. All right. Now we are going on to, this is a rather interesting items, kind of exciting. Review and approval of resolution 2022-02 to adopt an official Altadena Library District land acknowledgement, starting on page 91. Nikki?
Yes, I'm going to reintroduce you to Ashley Killian, our community partnership librarian who joined the staff back in November and volunteered to get involved and help us finish this land acknowledgement statement as well as resolution. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Ashley and let them present.
All right. Hi, everyone. So in your board package, you'll see that we proposed a land acknowledgement to be presented during all official library business. A team of 9 of my colleagues at ALD, as part of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team, have been working on this long before I arrived at the Altadena Library District. Acknowledging the land that we're occupying as a library and as members of the Altadena community is key to our EDI work. It's been one of the team's priorities since 2020 and is directly in line with the principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion. One of my major focuses since joining ALD has been to get this acknowledgement completed and then vetted by a spokesperson for the Gabrielino Tongva peoples, and before bringing this to you guys at the board. I met with Tina Calderon, who graciously lent her time and took our statement and provided guidance and then also feedback. We took that feedback and we now have a finalized acknowledgement. I'm new to California, and so I learned a lot about the history of this land during my meeting with Tina, and I'm very thankful for her time, as we could not and obviously would not have written this statement without her. This acknowledgement means nothing without action, and so the Altadena Library District intends to use this as a first step in building a relationship with those whose lands we've occupied without acknowledgement since 1967. We want this relationship to influence both the library's future programming as well as our current and forthcoming physical and digital collections.
Thank you, Ashley. Any questions or comments from my colleagues?
This is Jason. I'll just add that there's been some discussion about this and just the work thinking about the work that we're doing with the facilities committees and starting to think ahead about how we can incorporate some kind of acknowledgement in both the facilities changes we might be making as well as the landscaping. So I'm excited to see us begin to develop this relationship and make sure that we're including that kind of feedback in the work we're doing around the facilities as well.
All right, anyone else? Terry?
I want to make sure I understand this as well. So the 3 paragraphs that are on the top of page 93 are something that we would read into the record at every meeting. Is that right, Ashley?
So yeah, so the intention is that all departmental meetings, this will go on our website as well. And then also before public programming, anytime we're introducing ourselves to the public, that sort of thing, there is also an abbreviated statement. And so you can also provide that abbreviated statement, just if you're giving a quick introduction, that way you don't have to go through the whole to do, but formally, if we're giving a formal presentation, we would provide the full one. And just to be clear, that was on the advice of Tina. I made sure that we discussed that. I was like, when is the best time for us to be providing this acknowledgement? And that was under her advisement.
So if my understanding is right, this is a little bit like a pledge of allegiance or something that you would do at the beginning of the meeting.
I think, so not quite, but the intention is for us to just make sure that every time we are doing something, we're acknowledging where we came from and how we got here, so that other folks can then understand, where we came from and how we got there. And it can start conversations, it can spur people's interest in the topic. We want to make sure that we're always acknowledging that.
Okay. You gave me a big grin there, and I couldn't figure out if I'm still misinterpreting this or not, but that statement or something like it would be a preamble to our business every time we have a meeting, and then you would use it in departmental meetings and then public meetings and so on, with the rest of the community.
Correct. Yes.
So just speaking just for myself, it feels like it feels like a little too much to me. I mean, I'm on board with the concept for sure. I think it's great and it's beautiful. But I think at least in terms of the public record and the way that we meet as trustees, I would be personally more comfortable in doing something like this on a period of time where it needed to be said. And for instance, November is National Indigenous Heritage Month. It's a month that makes perfect sense to talk about this at the beginning of the meeting or acknowledge it. And of course, we've got Indigenous Peoples Day now, which I think replaced Columbus Day, right, in October. So, and I hope I'm not completely misrepresenting or misunderstanding it, but as a trustee, I'd be a lot more. I mean, if you look at President Biden, he has a statement he makes about Indigenous people on Indigenous People Day. You see what I'm saying? So it's not something that's woven into the fabric of what we of the services that we're offering to the library. It's probably not a good way to say it. Am I overthinking this, or do I kind of have it right?
No, I think I understand your point. I think as per the resolution too, there is some discussion still to be had about how frequently this is used. And I think that can be discussed. I made sure that I wrote that in there. So we can discuss that. However, this was what Tina advised for us to do. And so her advisement is very, very important to me. And so I don't think that I would feel comfortable like taking her advice and then being like, thank you so much, but I don't want to. And so I just I really want to take and respect what she had to say. And so that's what she had to say. And I think that it could be taken under advisement if you have, places in which you'd prefer not to, but I think that would have to be a larger discussion.
Yeah, I just hope I'm not completely misunderstanding this, but I guess for us as a board to speak these words into the record, which is what you're asking for, I'd be more comfortable doing it, not every meeting, but occasionally on dates where it makes sense to do it, simply because I feel like doing it every time, the pendulum has swung too far for me anyway. So I hope I'm got this right.
Terry, I welcome your opinion and your thoughts. I think that the staff worked very hard to come up, trying to come up with an official statement for the district. And to the extent of how the Board of Trustees would articulate this statement, these 3 paragraphs, the frequency of which I think is yet to be determined, but I think that as Ashley said, this is a lot of work went into to come up with this statement, and I think that we still can, as a body, determine how and when to utilize this acknowledgement. It could be every meeting. I mean, it could be before every board meeting, every committee meeting. It could be all of it. So we still have that to decide. And Ashley, Nikki, is this something that we need to decide today as far as the frequency, or is that's TBD? Is that correct? We're basically acknowledging this statement as far as acknowledging the peoples that previously owned the land that we now occupy, and this official statement that's being approved today is something that the board can at a later point determine how it wants to utilize it, or is this something that I think it's TBD, correct?
I think that's something that should probably be being discussed and built into whatever the motion is, if you so choose to move and vote on it tonight. And like Ashley mentioned, I don't see it in the resolution, but there's a shorter statement, as she mentioned, what I would imagine would be what is stated at the beginning of most meetings or programs. It would be this longer statement, like on our website, or
right.
Appropriate to have the longer statement.
Well, since we do have to have this conversation right now, and we should, then can Ashley, maybe you can point me out to all of us that specific shorter version that Nikki was referring to. I seem to recall reading that, and I'm not sure if it's right above the section 3 or what section we would be putting in our board reports, or the actual agenda?
So I'm looking at the resolution now. Sorry, I'm just looking at what Bridget had to say. Yeah, so I'm looking at the resolution now. I don't see the smaller version as part of the resolution. I am happy to provide that in the chat right now, since I have it with me. The abbreviated statement was the only part of our statement where she actually had nothing to advise us on. So I was really happy to hear that we had written something.
Sorry, as a point of order, can I request that you read it into the record rather than put it in the chat so that it's
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Sure. Am I able to do both? Let me
Sure,
see.
as long as it's read into the record.
Yeah. Let's do that. All right. So the Altadena Library District acknowledges our presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. We commit to learning, educating, and informing our staff and the residents of Altadena about the Gabrielino Tongva peoples present and past. So that's it's a lot less verbose. It makes it a lot easier to introduce into into board meetings and all of that. And so this would be something that you would, quickly make sure that we make that acknowledgement without causing like a big to-do about the situation. And so this small is what you would do like at the beginning of this board meeting.
Thank you, Ashley. That's concise and to the point, but it's backed by this resolution. That's obviously a lot of important work went into this, and the broader message is there in the resolution itself. So colleagues, any other thoughts? Yes, Katie, you have your hand up.
I think Camila had hers up first, so please.
Okay,
Camila.
I'm sorry. Camila.
I didn't, but that's okay. My hand up was to request the abbreviated version, and then to also to understand are we to decide which meetings it has to be, or are they like, of course, any official gathering, but like every single meeting that is going to be recorded? I just was curious about the scope of when the statement should be read, and then I was curious about who should read it. Is it the president, chairman of the trustees, and then is it something that could be recorded and played? So I'm just trying to figure out I guess it's more mechanics of the statement. I have no opposition to acknowledging it. I think that in terms of logistics and mechanics, the shorter version is more appropriate than the 3 paragraphs. But even if it was the 3 paragraphs, I think it is something that is worthwhile in terms of respect and acknowledgement. That was a lot. There were like a few questions in there. Sorry.
Good questions.
So it's really tough for me to speak on this, since I don't feel like it's necessarily up to me to dictate this. But from what I gleaned, and again, like I specifically asked, and so I think like what I understood from what Tina was saying is that probably the person that's leading this meeting, not this meeting, but a meeting, would be the person to make that acknowledgement. Not every single person when they speak or introduce themselves. I think like one time is sufficient. And that would be, whoever was in charge and whoever was leading the meeting. I think definitely for everything that's recorded. I think everything that's a formal gathering. So she had really wanted, if we were doing a story time, for there to be an acknowledgement there. She felt like that would open up a lot of conversation with families, with children, and so that we could have those discussions, or they could have those discussions at home. And so that was really important to her. But again, any official library business, any formal meetings is what I gleaned.
Katie.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify a point on that before I ask my question. And I think that that's explicitly spelled out in section 3.1, right? That the district will develop a protocol for when or how the acknowledgement is read at department meetings and events publicly and internally. So it sounds like that's a next step, if I'm understanding correctly, the process.
That's what I understood as well.
Okay. So my question, I suppose I'm kind of coming from the maybe the other end of the spectrum to Terry, in the sense that I feel like this is terrific, but it doesn't go far enough. It's not, perhaps not surprising, but I mean, I'm delighted to hear that you worked with Tina, because certainly she is someone whose opinion, you know, I respect tremendously, and I know has advised many organizations on how to honor the Gabrielina Tongva communities in the past, but also to make it very clear that these are our neighbors, right? And that these are folks who continue to exist, that this is not some historical thing that we're describing, but it's a present reality. And I think the part that really bothered me is that the fiscal impact of this is none, right? So in the staff report, there's no fiscal impact, which to me sort of signals, yes, we're willing to say this, but you know, we're not willing to devote any actual public funds to this effort. And if all the things that are outlined in the resolution actually happen, you know, establishing relationships with the Gabrielina Tongva peoples and the community, dealing, like, those are things that actually will have and should have a fiscal impact on the district. And so I guess my perspective is, I'd like to see us put our money where our mouth is. I'd like to see us back up something like this with real action and with real dollars, because I think otherwise it is, I don't want to say an empty gesture. I think it's important, but I don't think it actually achieves the goal of a land acknowledgement, which is to do some real work towards redressing the injustices that have happened and that continue to happen. So I guess maybe my question is, is there anything you can speak to on that front in terms of future, you know, budgetary allowances or ways in which this actually does have some sort of fiscal impact?
So I can say that is well beyond my scope. I know that, like, this was something that I've been really committed to working on, and it was writing the statement and making sure that the statement was something that we were proud of. And so that's like kind of the end of what I'm familiar with. When I did meet with Tina, I wanted to know, like, I would feel silly if we put this thing up and then we're like, okay, you know, we're done here. And so I agree with you, Katie. And I think that, like, there needs to be, money and something really put into this and relationships really developed. And so when I did meet with her, I made sure to keep that window open so that we could have further discussion about this. She let me know about like talks that she's given at local universities that I can't remember the acronyms of. But she was telling me about how this is something, and she's worked that into the curriculum in the Pasadena School District. And so I understand that she has a lot to offer and that she has a lot of connections for us. And she's going to be such a great person for me personally to be able to reach out to, and for us as a library to reach out to, so we can make those connections and we can further that relationship. I made sure to keep that open instead of being like, thank you, you know, and then we're done now. And we're not done now. And I wanted to make sure that in the resolution, it showed that we were not done now, and the library insists that we're not done now either.
Okay.
Katie, to your question, which is, excellent question. Could that not be included in section 3 as part of the further ongoing relationship establishment, looking at programs, working with the county, trying to figure out different displays, exhibits, programs? It could be other things that could be included as far as the ongoing discussion about how to proceed, not necessarily incorporate it into the specifics of this resolution, but more have that part of the body as far as things that we are committed to moving forward. And that's part of the ongoing dialogue with the Tongva people, and working with the county, working with the North American Indian Commission and the like, to come up with different ways to showcase, maybe not the right word, but to discuss it and make people aware. So that could be rolled in, and your thoughts, Katie, perhaps could be part of that ongoing dialogue. What that putting your money where your mouth statement is. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that that's right. I think that, I actually think that the actions that are outlined in the resolution make a lot of sense. I think my point is more, when I read through the staff report and it says, we're going to do this, but we're not going to spend any money on it, there's no fiscal impact. That's what I am kind of pushing back against. I would like there to be a fiscal impact. I'd like to see that have a fiscal impact on the district. I'd like us to spend money on this. I'd like us to prioritize it if it's something that we are indeed going to weave into this. I don't want it to be something that we say all the time, but we're not backing up with real dollars. So I think that's where I'm coming from more is, I'm delighted to take the first step. I think that's great, but I'd like to see coming back to the board, in future, some idea of what that looks like from a real, a real programmatic and fiscal standpoint.
Okay.
Can I jump in there? I see Diego's hand up, though, before
Diego.
I put mine up.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in terms of the discussion. Just wanted to give also some background in terms of why we didn't put an economic. I agree fully and wholeheartedly with Katie about wanting to make sure that there is funds allocated to the implementation of the resolution. But the reason we didn't put, at least as someone that helped Ashley with the resolution itself and the staff report, is because our examples that we came up with the land acknowledgement doesn't have any concrete, like all the examples said no economic impact. Although I agree, to implement, we would need to facilitate that. That is usually the land acknowledgement is the first step to start that conversation and those type of relationships before basically planning kind of our programmatic and budgetary work. But if we want to include it into this, we can, especially if we do any other resolutions, we'll have that in mind as a district.
Thank you, Diego. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Camila.
I was just going to suggest, in terms of problem solving and moving forward, is there something that can be placed in into that fiscal impact section that, says something to the point of, we're invested in, not in these words, of course, putting our money where our mouth is, right? So we can state that, we will, utilize, library funds to ensure, to accomplish those things set forth in this resolution, or just to put something in there. I don't know if it is allowed in terms of the structure of a resolution, if the fiscal impact section has to have like dollars attached to it, or if it can just be a general statement of how we might fiscally use any funds toward the completion of the resolution. But I would say, let's just modify that section to accomplish that goal, because I completely agree with you, Katie, in that respect, that it takes it a step further, even just stating like, we are going to put dollars behind this, even though we may not know what those dollars look like at this time.
Right. So Katie, I know you have your hand up, but I just want to say to Camila, perhaps at section 3, number 3, that where it talks about through materials, public programming, exhibits, displays, both library and digital, and then have further to develop budget to support these programs, something along those lines. That goes hand in hand with what's being developed in concert with the Tongva people. Katie?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the fiscal impact thing is in the staff report, not the resolution. So like it doesn't really matter. I guess what I'm suggesting is perhaps an amendment even to the resolution. I could imagine something like amending section 3, subsection 1, like just leave that first bit how it is, department meetings and events both publicly and internally, period. Furthermore, the district commits to real and meaningful action to embody the spirit of this acknowledgement on an ongoing basis. Or something like that, right?
You're not using the word fiscal in there?
Well, I don't think the only real and meaningful action is fiscal. I think that making decisions about staffing and making decisions about where we host programs and who we invite to speak at those, I think that there are a lot of ways to embody the spirit of a land acknowledgement. Budgets are an easy one, but not the only one. So I would want to make that as broad as possible, I think, but definitely that would wrap in for me the fiscal component.
Would our colleagues be amenable? Well, I have to have a motion for that first, but so maybe Katie, if you want to, okay, you want to take a second to come up with, I know you stated something kind of off the cuff, but your amendment to section 1, number 1, you would put it at the conclusion of number 1?
Yeah, I would suggest adding a sentence that, let me think for just 1 second.
Is it something that has to be done on the spot? I know we want to get the resolution approved, but is it something that we could say, like, you know, Katie, draft something that Ashley can add into the resolution and go from there? Or is it something that has to be done right this instant?
I kind of liked what Rushmore was saying in section 3, the 3rd paragraph. It kind of outlines through programming, exhibits, displays. Maybe we could add a line to that says the district commits to providing resources needed to carry this work out, or something to that effect, you know? Because the resources could be
financial,
it could be other things. It could be you know,
in kind. It could be
working with partner organizations. You know, it goes beyond just like spending money. You know,
right.
I'm fine with that. I agree with that.
That's fine with me.
Okay. So then we have to come up with this exact language here. So
I think you could, if I may, I think you could say, after the conclusion of that sentence, as it appears in our displays both at the library and digitally, period, new sentence. Furthermore, the district commits to allocating the resources necessary to carry out this work, period. And I think it just says basically like, yeah, we're going to do real stuff and we're going to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think that works as amended. And any other questions or thoughts on this resolution? No? Okay. So that being said, may I get a motion to approve the Altadena Library District land acknowledgement as amended in section 3, number 3? Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved as amended.
Thank you, Jason. Camilo's out a second. Great, thank you very much. All right, we'll go to the vote. Trustee Andrews.
Is it too late to ask clarifying questions on this?
Oh, no. No, absolutely, go for it.
So I want to get back to the original concept we have, and that is that we've got an abbreviated statement that we make at each of our board meetings, and of course used in a wider sphere than that with things that happen in the library meetings and so on. That I know it was amended and shortened and so on, but that statement is something that you, for instance, Rushmore, would read at the beginning of every meeting. Is that what we're voting on right now?
Yes, it could be. And again, I think it goes, but there's also that statement there where the district will develop protocol for when and how the adapted version of this acknowledgement might be read at department meetings and events, both publicly and internally. So at this point, we are committed to this statement that we still have time to, develop protocols. And I'm more than happy to read this into the record for every Board of Trustees meeting. That doesn't bother me. But I'm one person, so we have to vote on this. But we can also decide that we want to have further discussions about that either now or later, because it says we are to develop protocols.
So we would vote on the concept of it, but develop the protocol later on.
I suppose we could, but I'm perfectly comfortable, with the statement being read in now, and it could also be put in, the agenda where we have the agenda where we have submission of public comments, public requests for documents. That could certainly be a statement in there as well for every single agenda that we have.
Okay.
Because this is we're making an official statement on a go forward basis. And like I said, me personally, I'm comfortable reading into the record, but that's just me. We'll have to vote on this. If you feel that that collectively we should be discussing this to determine, if it has to be not just the Board of Trustee meetings, but it has to be, the Budget Committee, the Redistricting Committee. I mean, that's we can have that discussion now, or we can just say no. It's just going to be at the board meetings.
Yeah,
Board trustees.
You kind of answered my question, so we can proceed with the vote if you want, or we can talk about it in that. But I'm just not comfortable with it, so my vote right now is no.
Okay, no. Okay, just make sure I'm clear. You're no on the actual land acknowledgement as a whole, or you just no on the preamble or the public statement that's going to be made?
No, I'm only no on the frequency of it that we have in an official.
No, sorry. Point of order. We're voting on the motion on the second is voting on the resolution. So right. The question is on approving or not resolution 2022-02. So it's an up or down vote on that. You can't vote on parts of it, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, then I'm a no vote.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Any further discussions on the motion that's been moved? Okay. Seeing none. Trustee Andrews.
No.
Okay. Trustee Capel. Trustee Clark.
It's an aye vote from me.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
Thank you. And that is an aye vote for me. Thank you. That is approved 4-1. Thank you very much, Ashley and your team, for the hard work that went into this. Appreciate that. And obviously more discussions to follow, a lot more work ahead of us. So I very much appreciate that. Okay, next on our agenda is review and approval of the district's request for qualifications or proposal for California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA services. That starts in your package on page 95. Nikki?
All right, thank you. So thank you so much to Jennifer Pearson and Andrew Ullman from Racklin Partners, our wonderful capital project management team that have been in the meeting for 2 hours and 15 minutes with us to be able to present about the need for potentially CEQA studies on one or both of the library projects. I'll pass it over to Jennifer.
Good evening, everybody. So just a little bit of history on this. Of course, we've always intended to comply with CEQA on these projects, but originally we felt that the projects were unlikely to really impact anything on the environment because we did not anticipate them having expansion or much modification to the exteriors of the buildings, and we thought that we would just be able to do a categorical exemption for both projects. But as the designs have developed and it's becoming clear that at least Bob Lucas will have an expansion, and it's possible that the main library may also have a little bit of an expansion depending on budget. we felt that it would be prudent to bring on a CEQA consultant to ensure that we are complying with all of the requirements of the Act and to ensure that we're avoiding or mitigating any adverse impact on the environment for these projects. So we've developed this RFQP. So we're just requesting qualifications and rate sheets for the consultants. For not requesting an actual proposal for a specific project at this time, because we want to be able to have some discussions with the selected consultant to determine sort of what the scope of work will be based on their expertise and where they think these projects are going to go. So we would have to develop those project scopes, then get a proposal from our selected consultant, and then come back to you as necessary for approval on that.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Any questions or comments of Jennifer or Nikki on this? No, I think it's pretty straightforward and prudent to have that in place just in case. So, all right, with that being said, no questions or comments. May I get a motion to approve the RFQ and P, excuse me, for the CEQA?
So moved.
Thank you, Katie. May I get a second?
Second.
Okay, or Jason first. Thank you very much. Any further thoughts or comments on the motion before us? No, seeing none. Okay, go to a vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Clark.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
Thank you very much. That's an aye vote for me. Thank you very much. That is approved. Jennifer, thank you very much for hanging in there for such a long evening. Appreciate getting out. So very much. Thank you very much. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, everyone doing okay? We're in the home stretch. You keep going? You want a break? Keep going?
We're almost there.
All right, let's keep going then. All right. All right. So next is review and approval of the district's request for proposals for copier services. So in your packet, starting on page 124. Nikki?
All right, hello again. Lots of action items tonight, huh? So our contract for copier services is coming up. So our new IT and technical services manager, David Zierba, has been working on putting together an RFP, and I'll turn it over to him to explain the different options that the proposers will have and how we're going to proceed in hiring copier services.
All right, thank you, Nikki, and thank you, trustees. So as Nikki mentioned, I'm bringing before you RFP for copier services. Our current contract is due to expire June of 22, so that's coming up soon. And rather than just renewing with our current contract provider or going into negotiation with them, we felt like we'd be better off doing our due diligence and creating a request for proposal just to see, what kind of offers we can get. So the current costs approximately $2,000 per month, or 20,000 give or take. It depends on usage, so that's why our number is about 20,000 in the actual report. We have 4 copiers, 2 staff and 2 public, and we believe that we can reduce costs by either going one of 2 routes. So the first is to do a similar route to what we have now, which is a leased contract. Our previous lease contract was for 5 years. And then the other was potentially purchasing the devices outright. So in our RFP, we've written it in such a way to ask for 2 individual cost sheets, one for cost for purchasing outright and what the cost would be for 4 devices. And then the other is the 2 to lease the copiers for 5 years. Either way, we still see in a savings, fiscal impact of the savings overall, because our usage has gone down just a little bit. It's a slow decline, but it is a decline. And there's also different rates that are available for nonprofits and bigger organizations such as ourselves. And if we purchase outright, we're looking at a long-term cost because we're purchasing. So a little bit more upfront if we were to go that route. However, long-term over like a 5-year span, as opposed to leasing, we'd see a reduction in cost after the first 2 years, more or less. Yeah, so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you, David. Any questions of David or Nikki on this? No? Okay. Seeing
I've
none.
I've got a couple questions.
Yes,
Yeah.
go right ahead.
Thanks. So let me make sure I understand what you're recommending. Is the idea that in soliciting bids, we'll get better insight into whether it makes more sense to lease or purchase, or are you recommending that we lean towards one or the other at this point? I think I heard you say it makes more sense on, you know, kind of a long-term basis to purchase, but maybe I'm not.
Well, we would get more insight as to which route to lean. We're not necessarily leaning to one specific route, because although we would see a cost savings overall, there are additional costs that are included in that in our lease component, we're talking about like consumables and expecting the vendor to supply those. Those kinds of things have a pretty exorbitant cost depending on what units we purchase. So although like upfront we would see a savings, you know, after a certain amount of time, we would still be purchasing the consumables. So there is a cost with that. It's hard to exactly estimate all of the costs, but technically, just based off of what research I've done, it looks like we would see a likely cost if we were to purchase. But soliciting bids for both a lease and a purchase allows for us to make a better determination of that, because when you have these kinds of units, they don't just publish how much the costs are for them, because there's so much that they can customize, and then also, you know, there's a sales component that goes into it.
Okay, thanks. So a couple of follow-ups, if I may. One, so in the scope of work in the RFP, so section 3.1, is the idea that a responsive bid either does like either or does a responsive bid have to do both? I guess my question is it common for the kind of vendors that you're looking at to provide both those services as normal part of their business? Or are there some that just lease, some that just sell?
Oftentimes it depends on the business. There's different types of businesses out there. The goal is to see both. If they only offer one, I think we'd be open to seeing the one that they offer. And the idea is just to get an array of different types of services and compare to find the best option amongst the different vendors and the different vendor services that are offered. But ideally, we'd see both an offer for a lease and an offer for purchase. If they cannot do both, then we'd like to see, you know, whichever one they can do at a rate that we'd like to see as well.
Okay. And then last question from me, and then I'll be quiet, is do we anticipate expanded demand for copier services as we're thinking about reconfiguring the interior spaces at both Maine and Bob Lucas, given that we're putting in more spaces that might be sort of co-working or sort of, you know, that we're providing a configuration that would be a different outlook? Do we expect that demand to continue to decline, or do you think that may shift over time?
I personally feel like the demand will continue to decline. Just like I said, it's very slight, but it seems to be like a linear decline there. And also we're reconfiguring not only the public spaces, but the staff spaces. So the staff will be in one specific area, and that would allow for us to maybe repurpose the existing equipment to other spaces, because we'd be consolidating staff areas into one staff area. If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
Great. Good questions, Katie. Thank you. Camila, you have your hand up for this item?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm struggling to really understand, but let me see. So the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the use of an RFP to solicit bids for copy. So basically you want to have vendors send us bids and decide whether or not it would make more financial sense to either buy or continue to lease the copy machines. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's
in a nutshell?
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm good.
Yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
Great. Any other questions? Comments? No? Okay, great. May I get a motion to approve the board to release this RFP to solicit bids for copier services?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. May I get a
Second.
second? Thank you, Katie. All right, take it to a vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Clark.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
Thank you. That's an aye vote for me as well. That item is approved. Thank you very much, David. All right, next item on our agenda is a review and approval of the district's purchase of library vehicle for mobile library services and community outreach. It's on page 155 of your board package. Nikki? Nikki?
I'm coming, sorry. I was just fine in my package. So we actually had Jonathan put together this staff report. So I'll ask him to join us and speak about purchasing another mobile library unit, which, as I mentioned during the mid-year budget adjustments, will be completely funded through the California State Library money that we're going to be getting. So Jonathan, take it away.
Good evening. Hello all. So we are requesting that we purchase another vehicle for the another Curiosity Connection or another vehicle for the library. The money we'll be getting was from the $50,000 grant that we got from the Holden administration from the state of California. And so we'll be using that money. So there will be basically no fiscal impact for that. But this will be an additional vehicle that will help us facilitate while we are closed down during renovations. So we would have another vehicle for other community outreaches to reach seniors, senior citizens, those that are not able to reach the library. And so with two vehicles out there, we will still make our presence known to the community, and we will be out there and just, doing the best that we can with what we have. But also those vehicles will become in use when we have to move things from other facilities, from our facilities to storage areas or things like that. So it would be a great asset for us to have another vehicle. The one that we have right now, we are using it, and we do use it for when we move other things like furniture to other sites, to the Bob Lucas branch or things like that. But it would be nice to have another vehicle since we're going to be doing a lot of more moving this for the renovation. So my recommendation is we would, humbly ask if we could have another vehicle, and the cost would be no more than $50,000. Since it will be a 2022, it will be the same type of vehicle, and but we will probably make it add more little enhancements to it, so it could be much more versatile for the things that we want to do with it.
Great, thank you, Jonathan and Nikki. Any questions or comments from our colleagues? Katie.
Couple questions. One, very exciting that we could have a fleet of Curiosity Connections, but to come up with names for each vehicle so you can say when you see them around town. What was the, if you know, what was the all-in cost for our original mobile library unit? Because I'm curious to know, like, basically purchase price, the all-in stuff you've got here, tax, title, warranty, but then also the modifications that you had to undertake to get it up and running. Do you know what that came in at?
So we know the vehicle came in at under $40,000. We did. I do have a list, and I should have been more prepared for this. Forgive me, but I do know that from we added a step, which is about side step, which is about $15,000. We added another awning on there, what was another $15,000, which makes it
not $15,000. Yeah,
$1,500. Yeah. $1,500, forgive me. $1,500 for the side steps, $1,500 for the awning. So that's a $3,000 right there. The wrap cost $2,800. So that's another close to $7,000. So I would think with incidentals, everything, we close up to between $7,500 and $9,000 that we added additionally to the van.
Yeah, with potentially more, because there was shelving and
yes.
So all in, I want to say we asked for almost 10,000 just
Right.
to do the conversions. So we're looking at probably between 50 and 60,000 to get it converted and fully functioning. But we did ask this time for 50 because last time we asked for up to 40 and we barely were able to purchase it. So we intend to spend much closer to 40 on the van itself. In terms of modifications, I know it's our goal to keep the van more open than the current van that we have, which is really like full of outreach. So I do think the conversion is going to be much less expensive on this one.
Right.
Yeah. I guess my question is really like, should we be approving up to 60 just to give you the room you need, given that this is not, I mean, it's not money coming out of general fund or operating, it's coming out of this grant. So it's kind of, you know, math more than it is moving things out of, you know, programming funds or something like that. If you think you can get it done and it's all good at 50, then fair enough. But I just want to make sure you're not hampered by, you know what I mean?
Well, and really the 50 is just the purchase price of the van.
So that doesn't wrap in any of the conversion costs. That's all separate. And that would come from the 250K grant as well, presumably?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't want us to cut it as close as we did the last time.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And
okay, thanks.
As Jonathan probably pointed out, it's difficult to get vehicles right now. So we're looking at 4 or 5 months down the line.
Right.
So we're really premature bringing it to you guys, but we thought we might as well get it done.
Also buy it now. Exactly.
Yep.
Any other questions of Jonathan or Nikki on this? No? Okay, seeing none. May I get a motion to approve the acquisition of the second vehicle?
I move that we acquire that second vehicle.
Thank you, Terry. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jason. All right, any other questions or comments, discussion on that matter? No, seeing none. Okay, we'll go to a vote. Trustee Andrews?
Aye.
Trustee Capell?
Aye.
Trustee Clark?
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson?
Aye.
Thank you. And I vote for me as well. That matter is approved. Happy car shopping. Okay, now next is a review and presentation of the district's 2021 annual report, starting on page 156 of your handout. Nikki?
All right. So as you can see, this is for fiscal year 2021. So pretty amazing when you look at the report to think that we were in a global pandemic while all of those things were happening. Some of the highlights I want to point out were the work that Jonathan and the Bob Lucas staff did to not only install the demonstration gardens, create some really great volunteer and community building activity, but also getting it all paid for out of a grant through the water district. So that was great. Let's see. And I do want to say, normally I'm planning to bring this to the board in like October or November. As you're all aware, Bryn Wall started with us in the middle of September, kind of like fell off of our radar. So it does feel a little bit very past tense at this point, but next year, now that we have the formatting down with her, we will get it to you guys sooner, where it's just the past fiscal year. We're really excited about establishing Read Local, Shop Local. I think that created some great partnership and relationship building opportunities in the community. Ashley Killian, our community partnership librarian, working to continue to expand that. But again, that was started almost a full year ago. And of course, acquiring the Curiosity Connection was another fantastic part of fiscal year 2021. We launched that in June of 21. And as you can see from some of the by the numbers, we've gotten out to the community and really connected with a lot of people using the van so far. So I'm excited to see how many more people we can reach in the community by having a second vehicle. So as you can see, cool infographics, as well as all of the support that we get from both the Friends and Foundation and their supporters. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Happy to answer any questions you might have, but really for being closed for 3 months of that year, I'm amazed at how much has been accomplished and how much we continue to accomplish.
Looks great. Questions, colleagues?
I don't have any questions. Sorry. I just wanted to say it was a really lovely report. It was very detailed and I appreciate that. And it was beautiful as well. And I look forward to people reading it out and about.
Yeah, she really did a nice job putting it together.
Anyone else? Yes, Katie.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. Oh, Katie, did you have something?
Go ahead, Terry. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
go
a
ahead.
couple of comments. I think it looks terrific and it really conveys what the library's been doing to the community, which is so important right now, especially in this waning age of COVID, but it's still out there. And you talked also about the formatting. And one thing I was struck with, if you go back and look at annual reports that we've done way back in the day, they change formats all the time. You know, one year would be look one way, the next year would be completely different. So I like the idea. I think I heard you say that getting the formatting down to some extent is something that you're going to use going forward with this, because I think it looks really good.
Yeah, thank you. I'll pass that along to Bryn. She put a lot of time into it.
Katie.
Yeah, just real quickly, big thank you to Bryn for getting this put together. And I think it's terrific. I've noticed as I've been having conversations with folks about our library building projects that I've heard from more than one person on more than one occasion, this assumption that libraries are being used less, like just generally, right? And that people are not using our libraries, and there's this sort of, which is not supported by any of the statistics you bring to us every month or by this annual report at all. And so I think about ways in which we might be able to use some of this data to counter that narrative, you know, as we're getting out and about and we're talking to folks. I'd love to just sort of seed in the idea that actually you might think libraries aren't being used, but actually, you know, more people every year are using our library. Because it's surprising to me to hear that. And I know, you know, we think about library usage all the time, but there is this sort of pervasive assumption or narrative that I've been surprised to encounter. So it's great to see another tool in our arsenal to push back on that.
Yep.
I just was going to add some anecdotal feedback on that as well. Earlier this week when I was at the library doing some paperwork, I randomly met a woman coming out of the library who verbally expressed the same. She lives in Pasadena. She was there returning a book that I noticed, and I made a comment about it. And we sat outside and chatted for like 10 minutes. And she just really expressed how happy she was that the Altadena Library was available, and, you know, often had books that other even bigger libraries didn't have. And she appreciated the accessibility of it during the current crisis. So just offering that feedback. I don't know who she was. She was a stranger. We just were talking about the book that she was returning to the library, but she was really happy with the services and definitely utilizing the library.
Oh, thank you for being an ambassador for us, Mila.
Absolutely. So any other thoughts, comments? Well, Nikki, I think it looks fantastic. Yeah, it's just job well done. It really, it's a quality product, and it continues to move the dial forward as we continue our communication to the people. So well done. So, okay, that was informative. So now next, last action item of this evening is our favorite, our monthly review and approval of the resolution 2022-03 for the to extend the provisions of the resolution, basically authorizing remote telecommuting or teleconferencing. So nothing new. You know what this is about. So any thoughts, comments, questions at this point on it? No. Jason?
I'm just wondering with, you know, we're almost daily updates we're getting from the state. If anybody's heard, if we've heard anything about whether, you know, how long the governor is going to continue allowing this, like, we have any idea where that stands?
I have not heard. Nikki, have you heard anything? Or anyone else of the trustees?
Yeah, I see Katie's raising her hand.
Yeah, Katie, did you?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of, well, so the way that the California State Legislature handled this, basically they tied the telecommunications provision to an ongoing state of emergency. So as long as the state of emergency persists, this ability for legislative bodies to meet remotely persists. So what we've heard from the governor's office is that there's no plan to lift the state of emergency in the immediate future, just because there's a lot of uncertainty about like how future rates are going to look, and it gives the state the ability to do some things that they want to do. So there's no sunset at present on that, even though there are a lot of changing provisions on public health stuff. So as far as and Diego, I'm sure will tell me if I'm wrong, but as far as I understand, those two are tied pretty closely, that the state of emergency is what enables this resolution to continue.
Yeah, it does make you wonder if he lifts the state of emergency, like, does the resolution get us through the 30 days? So you could potentially still have one more teleconference.
It gets you through the data that you've passed it through,
Right.
but then you can't do it again. You can't extend again.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he doesn't lift it pretty soon, to be honest. Seems like that's the direction things are heading, but we'll keep an eye on it.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay. May I get a motion to approve this action?
Move to approve resolution 2022-03.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second it.
Thank you, Camila. Any further discussion on the matter? All right, seeing none, go to a vote. Trustee Andrews?
Aye.
Trustee Capel?
Aye.
Trustee Clark?
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson?
Aye.
Thank you, and I vote for me as well. That concludes all our action items. Next, and we're in the home stretch here. We're almost here at the end here. The governance. This is on page 173 of the packet. This is the board's communication strategy. Subsequent to our board retreat, Nikki and myself met with Jennifer Coyle from North Star, who had convened and led our retreat, and came up with some thoughts about how we could move forward in a couple of ways. The first of which was kind of coming up with kind of the three key steps that we could move forward on, and that is, one, to develop a compelling messaging for various districts to encourage participation and board involvement, which we had discussed. Two, identifying barriers to entry to being a board member and take them down whenever and wherever possible, and then create points of entry to board leadership along the pipeline, whether it be, people that are, in high school, college, and just trying to figure out different points that we can actually get people interested in that. So the takeaways were that it'd probably be helpful for us at some point to have a subsequent retreat to kind of button down some of these. But one thing that we did commit to at the very least, and I want to thank Camila for coming up with some questions. And if you turn to the back page, 174, we talked about me doing videos, and what Jennifer came up with, I thought was kind of a nice idea, is we have our existing picture. We may even maybe have a casual picture as well that's not so formal, and we have a series of questions here that are both professional and personal that we can answer those questions. If you can answer as many of those as you'd like. You can send them to me, and what we'll do is I'll work with Nikki and the team to be able to update the page with our pictures to meet the board, and they'll have kind of a neat kind of flip back and forth between your professional headshot and a casual headshot, and different pictures, different responses to these questions. And then the other piece of that would be then, really kind of the heart of trying to come up with what compels us to be a trustee. And without redacting the name, she just kind of listed these various key points that all of us had provided individually to her prior to our retreat. And the idea from here would be, based off of these, kind of developing kind of, if you will, not one or two different messages, but several different messages based off of what we have here. And I think that they really reflect a broad spectrum of why people would want to be a volunteer to be on the board of trustees. And I think it goes nicely along with, we're talking about redistricting and trying to get the word out. So kind of the timing is ripe for this. And, I don't pretend to be a marketing specialist to do this type of work, but I think the first step, and I wanted to commit to you, is, and again, thank you, Camila, for giving some of your suggested questions. Really kind of start with getting to know the board members and having the personal and professional questions, and get that up on the board on our website. And then secondly, then kind of redefining some of these attributes as to what the reason why we volunteer, and then figuring out what that platform, what that looks like as far as disseminating that out to the community. So that's kind of a general thought, and I think that would probably require a subsequent retreat of some kind to kind of hone this stuff down. And I would work with Jennifer and Nikki before that, because I don't want to waste everyone's time, because our time is valuable. Make sure that there's enough meat to be able to meet and discuss these matters. But I think that at the very least, it'd be helpful if we could maybe each of us commit to answering both the professional and personal questions. And if you have other questions you'd like to respond to, I'm open to that, but I think it'd be a good way to start. So that's kind of in a nutshell, as a follow-up to our retreat. And I'm not sure if any of you had any thoughts or comments to this.
So can I just ask a quick question? Let me make sure I understand what you want us to do. You want us to send you a fun picture and the answers to all the questions?
To those, yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think that sounds great. Love it.
Yeah, that's a good start. And then and then I really want to tease out why we commit all these crazy hours to do what we're doing, because of course we love Altadena, we love contributing. Any other thoughts or on the direction?
And the material goes to you, Rushmore, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Nikki's is bogged down right now. What I'll do is I'll gather this information and I'll forward it to Jennifer, have her start working on that. Of course, we'll bring Nikki into the discussion as well. But I'll just go ahead and give this to her, because we've been having ongoing dialogue about this, trying to figure out the next steps. Because as we were discussing, it all came down to communication, but it was such a big open topic, and how you get to that. And and we really kind of boil down to get to know the board members, and really why are we getting involved, and this is all kind of getting people beyond the one, to educate people what we do, and two is like why it's exciting for us and why it would be exciting for other people to get involved as well. So maybe we could commit to say maybe is 1 week too aggressive for you? I mean, today is the 28th. How about by the 7th, Monday the 7th? Is everyone good with that?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Excellent. So with that, let's see. Yeah.
I have a note to remind you about potentially creating a subcommittee to work on the director's evaluation too. I don't know if you want to do
that. Yes, actually, thank you for that, because actually I did speak with Jennifer about that, and she gave me some ideas as far as how we could pare this thing down. But it really, just obviously what was created was there was a lot of helpful evaluation tools, but there was just, I think most the feedback was it was too cumbersome. So if I could maybe get I will commit to be on the subcommittee if I get one additional person, trustee, to help be on a subcommittee to work with her to try to pare this thing down. I see Katie's hand going up. Okay, great. Okay, I appreciate that. It's kind of it's important that we really kind of give Nikki, the appropriate evaluation, same time making it clear for the public, as well as make it easier for us to be able to evaluate her and her successes and where improvements could be made. So I appreciate that, Katie, for your commitment to that. So okay, excellent. Let me see. Let's see, announcements, planning, any future agenda items for next month's agenda? If not, you let myself or Nikki know if you have any requested items. Let me see, any objection to adjourning? It is, gosh, 7:50. My God, this was a marathon for me. I'm not sure how it is for you guys, but this is the longest board I've been. That must be that darn president. He's not running a tight meeting. So
that'd be a way for us to round it off another 10 minutes to 8 o'clock. Come on now, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Terry can tell you some horror stories about ones that have gone even longer than that. So.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, I appreciate your patience.
9:30, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Well, all right. So I don't feel so bad now. So, and going back to, this resolution to do these teleconferences, I'm hoping at some point before the end of this calendar year, I guess to be in a meeting with all of you. So let's keep my fingers crossed. But may I get a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I got a second.
I'll second.
All right, thank you very much. And if you don't mind, as we conclude and adjourn this meeting, if we could just keep the people of Ukraine in our thoughts and prayers as they're dealing with such a crisis and this affecting the world, but certainly them in such a horrific state. So kind of puts things in perspective in this day and age. So we could, as we close and adjourn for this evening, if we keep them in our thoughts and prayers, appreciate that. So with a further objection, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much. All right, take care.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.